Years. Late to the movies. It's slightly more syllables, so it's hard to.
Yeah, you got to do that
pin
part
down.
fast.
They got me on that part because he went through the first door, and I was
Yeah.
like, "That's the here's Johnny thing," and he didn't say it, and I was like, "Oh, Mandela effect," and then I saw the second door, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
No. Then he does a big bad wolf thing,
I love. Oh yeah.
and then he says, "Here's podcast." I don't know. He doesn't.
Let's lock that one in.
You can't do it.
Well, no, I was saying you just say "here's podcast" every time.
Oh, maybe that's as good as any place to start. Because I don't really know how to yet. This is gonna be that. Maybe here's podcast. Maybe I just say here's Johnny and it's like not provide any context or something like welcome to Late to the Movies. My name's Ben Holt. Every week on this podcast, me and my friends talk about a movie that at least one of us hadn't seen before. We get to fill in our blind spots. Talk about fun, not heavy, not sort of mentally taxing movies at all. Last week, we put out 2 full episodes on 4 Matrix movies. And so to relax going into the new year, we thought something real lighthearted, not at all dense, nothing to dig into. So we're doing Stanley Kubrick's 1980 classic, The Shining. Hey guys, it's normal perfect movie crew is here. That means I'm once again with Greg and Ray. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
Great. Yeah.
Wormed your way into another perfect movie.
Yes.
Yep. We're
Not to tip my hand too much on my thoughts of this film, but
we're happy to be doing a movie that almost has a New Year's Eve party right before New Year's. It's
we'll
great.
get into that for sure. And then the newbie on Late to the Movies this week is Robbie.
Hey, what's up?
What a surprise.
Robbie is so late to the movies that he didn't know he was going to be on this episode until about 4 hours ago.
Yeah, so I just watched it 40 minutes ago, and I'm glad you mentioned the heaviness because I kind of feel like that Office episode where they're like, they taught Michael the intercom and then he just left. I'm like, they made me watch this movie and then I just have to go home. I guess I just got to go home and then, sleep. I'm going to be sleeping.
So I think especially this movie is a really fascinating one to get someone very raw off their first watch.
That was the other thing I'm thinking. I'm like, great, I'm glad I had this whole drive to process this.
Yeah.
It's not overly complicated or deep or anything.
Just up the 25-mile long Sidewinder over to back to South Coast of Massachusetts.
I just picture you in your car, like the opening sequence now. Though.
It was that
like ominous like tone playing the whole time.
There was no music playing, and I just kept the windows open. It's about 40 degrees, just get the mood.
This is going to be a really tough movie for me to not every time we talk about literally anything push my glasses like way up the bridge of my nose and go, did you guys know that they hadn't invented a way to film out of helicopters yet? So a guy had to like tie himself to ropes and just lean out the window.
And
that's how they filmed that
That's
sequence.
as soon as I saw that opening sequence, I was like, this is something that is like used all the time now in movies and commercials because we have drones. I was like, the fuck did they do?
I
Right.
did not even think
Because
about
they
it.
definitely did not have them.
I love that
Yep.
the first thought wasn't like, we could make like a stand or a connection for it. It was tie some ropes to that asshole and kick him out of the helicopter.
They didn't have a way, they just did it.
They absolutely, if they had a way to hang a man out of the helicopter.
Well, they probably tied a rope to he's literally like attached with bungee cords and ropes and stuff. He's like, in case the ropes fail, you got bungee cords. He's like, okay, I guess so. There's so many of these guys are still around because the movie only came out 40 years ago. And there's a lot of people who, in their 20s or 30s or whatever, they're still around. So you can see interviews with them on YouTube. But first, we usually start by talking about movies that we've all seen recently. I know in particular, Greg had one he wanted to bring up.
Yeah. I saw Spider-Man.
Oh,
No Way Home.
Yeah.
Robbie's seen the first 3 minutes.
Ooh, what'd you think?
Wow, special.
I enjoyed it. I like the direction they were going into. It reminded me a lot of the last 3 minutes, but I did get a little bit more information where I got to see him like take her back to her apartment, and then the movie fixed and put on the Matrix.
Yeah. As addressed on the last episode, they showed us the wrong movie for like 3 minutes.
I did hear that actually.
The upsetting part of that is I made it the entire time without seeing a preview to this movie until I was in the movie and they played the preview for it.
Oh no. You hadn't seen a preview?
I did. I almost felt like complaining, like it wasn't worth it, but I'm like, I bet you I can get my $15 back because this is a valid complaint. I am a little annoyed about this.
So what do you guys think of Spider-Man? No, I assume, Ray, you saw it too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
I went into it with the wrong mindset.
Yeah, I went into it knowing it was going to be fun, and I had a good time. You went into it expecting some kind of like, I don't know, masterpiece.
I haven't seen a Marvel movie since the last Spider-Man movie, which I don't.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So instead, I've been watching all like high quality good movies, and
yeah, for this, and
then I went
This
in-
isn't at all like Silence of the Lambs.
Yes,
and Spirited
As you
Away.
know, we only do top tier movies here.
like I went in thinking I was paying too much attention to the plot and the details, and that's not how you're supposed to watch Marvel movies. You're supposed to just kind of enjoy the ride. And
let it wash over you.
I think another issue I had, which isn't really a spoiler if you've seen any of the trailers.
We haven't.
You have now, though, right?
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I know. I've heard. We've talked about that enough that I know like all of the people are in it.
Yeah. Well, the only thing, there was another Spider-Man movie not that long ago, Into the Spider-Verse, which while they are very different, they have enough similarities where I'm like comparing it to a movie that is much better than it.
That's tough. I mean, that's, a creative team that I really love with Lord and Miller and the other guys involved with Spider-Verse. Peter Ramsey also, great director of that movie. And you have these guys who put a lot of heart and empathy into their movies versus Spider-Man No Way Home having to be Disney, Sony, and Sony's sort of bell cow for all the money that they should have made at theaters this year.
Yeah.
So it's, they need to accomplish very different things for the creative people behind it.
Yeah, it was okay still. I still enjoyed it, but it was fine. I'll rewatch it at some point and maybe I'll enjoy it more.
I think my take was with both of you. I wasn't like disappointed by it. I was like, oh, this is fun. I like popcorn as much as anyone else. I don't mean to be too dismissive. I don't think it's going for anything more than that, but it's a lot of plot holes and a lot of weird decisions by characters. But on the other hand, teenagers make weird decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you kind of just want to be like, Peter, you're a really smart guy. Shut up.
Yeah.
None of this would have happened if you had just stopped talking a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, somebody could do that to any of our lives at any point. Like, just be glad that nobody's looking for plot holes in the shit you do every day.
I know, but if you got like a wizard telling you, hey, stop, you're ruining the universe, and you're like, I'm going to keep going. Like
50-50. We'll see.
I don't know, just stop maybe. And then you're on May's like, these psychopaths, they mean the world to you now that you just met. And you're like, I don't know that they do, May.
You do. They
I don't
do.
know. I know that they do.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fine. I also, I know we were already wicked off track. Also saw The Witcher, though.
yeah,
The new
I was
season
gonna
of The
say,
Witcher.
yeah, we watched
Toy-
all of the
toss a
Witcher
goddamn
season
coin.
2.
Coin. I loved the first episode with the guy from Game of Thrones. And
Yeah.
then I thought the rest of the season didn't really live up to it. I think part of that is the first episode is very directly based on a story from the Witcher books. And the rest of it is they kind of did like late season Game of Thrones, we're beyond the books, so now we do this, except they're very much not beyond the books. They just were like, we're going to do this thing.
So, kids, I love the show. I love the series. I think it's great. I think I would like it a lot better as a standalone show and somebody else to take over on the Witcher. Maybe not take over, but just like they don't do Witcher things. The first episode, he hunted a creature. And that was it. I mean,
And there
was
was
a
like pathos
little
about
bit,
what makes a monster and like the nature of, fatherhood and stuff. Like they just don't get into it.
Again, fantastic show. Loved it.
Yeah, I
Don't have a lot of complaints about the show, but I don't feel like they've done a great job of doing Witcher.
That's true. They did not do many Witcher things in this season, but I did enjoy that it was linear this time.
Yes.
It
That
was
much
nice.
Just
easier
the-
to
They're
just the
telling
one
a
thing.
story now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, should we talk about The Shining?
Okay, so we're going to talk about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Hmm.
Didn't come out until 1980. They worked on it for a very long time. Shooting process was arduous, took about 56 weeks. Sounds like it was not fun,
That doesn't sound fun, no.
but they made a really cool movie. So this is new to Robbie. Do you want to give us you want me to put a minute on the clock again?
Oh, man.
I don't think you need the whole minute this time.
No, it's I guess it doesn't actually have like a super complicated plot.
Let me pull up a stopwatch.
All right, so is the go still I know
Go.
kung fu? Oh, okay. So
Oh wait, sorry.
Wow.
Let's do a fun one. Here's
Johnny. So Johnny wants to be a writer. He really is having trouble doing that. So.
Okay, let's start over. His name's Jack.
It's hard because the actor's name is also Jack.
So it's easy to get confused.
Well, his name is John Torrance, so it's all right.
Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
All right, so Jack wants to be a writer, and he used to be a teacher, hates being a teacher, wants to go move to a hotel to manage it while there's nobody there. Great time to be a writer, nobody's around, should be fine.
45 seconds.
Him and his wife go to move there with their son. Already seems to be a little bit of a history of abuse with the father. He kind of jerked the arm a little bit, and also he's a teacher that kind of clearly hates kids, so interesting plot points going on here with the family. But they go to the hotel, it's kind of creepy scary, it's a little spooky. Previous maintenance man murdered his wife and his kids there. So his kids start seeing like hallucinations. He's got an imaginary friend that doesn't seem to be that imaginary, has this weird connection with the chef guy. So then, everybody leaves and shit starts
15
going down.
seconds.
Nicholson is going a little bit crazy. He starts to get more and more violent. Kid does a psychic
10.
beam to the chef guy. He tries to come save him. Jack kills the chef guy. And then they escape, run away. Jack freezes to death in the maze.
And time. Good job.
Yeah, nice.
That was pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
I edit
I like
like a
that you
heartbeat
slowly-
over that. Man, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
Sounds
only the
like
second
work.
half. You sped up too as the time got lower. You can have the heartbeat speed up.
I think around like 40 seconds you were on the closing day, and then the last 20 seconds were all the action in the movie.
Yeah. Well, like again, I just watched it, so like as I started talking, like I really had to like reel myself in a bunch of times
So,
because I was
I
like, I
mean-
want to like explore these paths.
Speaking extemporaneously and only for a minute about a movie that dense that you only just saw, I think you did a really good job, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very good.
I think you hit it all. You didn't explain The Shining, so let's get into that.
Oh damn!
Well, I mean, you weren't going to be able to in that much time. I mean,
I thought you meant like the whole
actual-
movie. I was like, yeah, we still have to film a
No.
little bit more.
Not that glib. Lowercase The Shining.
The name of the movie, he didn't talk about
I
it.
feel like it should be uppercase, but
Okay, whatever. Well, you know what I mean. The concept of The Shining.
Mm.
yeah. So we really get all our details of it from Halloran, right? The chef.
Scatman Crothers.
Yep.
Playing Dick Halloran.
Yeah, when he talks to
Danny. This is
You
I
did that
know.
for dramatic effect,
for
right?
dramatic
it's
effect.
going off the rails already.
Already.
These names are tough. Jack, Danny,
Dan. Oh my god.
Wendy.
Wendy.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But they don't even give us a ton of details on it,
No.
right?
Part of the ambiguity. He at least tells him that, like, I could have conversations with my grandma and her just in our heads. She called it The Shining.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty much
it
it.
seems like based off of what he says at first, like having the conversations, I always assumed it was like telepathy. But then the more he goes into it, the more I feel like they kind of just hint at it being like a sixth sense. Like you get an idea of like what's happened in places and like just kind of general vibes about things.
You just vibed
So
them.
You're just vibing.
I
Yeah.
feel like they showed us what The Shining was. I think it was when he's talking to Tony and he first puts him like asleep and he's like, show me. And you see like the girls and the waterfall of blood and like all of that. And like you see all of those things happen. And then they cut to the kid in like a coma. And I think that was exactly what he saw. And like that was The Shining. That was like the exact kind of, that was how it worked.
Yeah. So Danny's a 6-year-old kid. The way he processes and understands this is it's the little boy that lives in his mouth, Tony, who is showing him these things while he's sleeping. He goes into some kind of trance and he's shown these images or whatever. And the way he understands it is that it's someone named Tony who's speaking to him and showing him these things.
Yes. I was under the impression that he does not have to just be in a trance to get these
Oh, no.
images and yeah.
I didn't think that either. I just think that that was an example of like,
Yeah.
So like the other messages would have looked differently and they would have been a similar, and maybe they wouldn't have been visual, but maybe they would have been like feelings. Like it seemed like the chef, Halloran got a feeling something was wrong. Or no, he had a nightmare too, it seemed like.
Yeah, because he like
Like
zones
a
out. And
vision,
you see it
yeah.
like zoom in on his face, and he's like,
His eyes are definitely open though,
yes.
but he's just looking at the porn that he has on the
I
walls.
love that.
I've never
Just like-
understood that. I've never understood that. Because it's very like intentional that they show it to us because
Yeah,
it starts off like very zoomed into the TV and then very slowly they zoom out and you're like, what's that on the wall? It's like, oh wait,
It's
this naked
ass.
picture.
Was it on both sides?
Yes, he had
Yeah,
two.
it's on both sides.
So it starts zoomed
There's
in
one
on
And they did
over
the same
bed
thing
and
again.
one over the TV.
They immediately do the same thing again. It starts zoomed in on him, and it zooms out, and they're like, "Wait, what's above him on the bed?" And it's
More
another
boobs.
nude.
Why?
painting.
What is the why? I don't know why that was important.
I
That's
kept
just how he gets down.
I
He's in
kept-
Florida. That's what it's like.
It's
there.
funny. Like I thought it was funny, but it's not supposed to be funny.
I was trying to figure out how it was like. I was assuming it was some kind of like protection. Do you know what I mean?
I don't-
like
No, he doesn't seem to be
you
into
get the
protection.
evil spirits can't come past the titties. Like,
It's this. It's like set in what the mid 70s. So
maybe
no- the
was that
novel's
just a thing people did?
1974,
Did people
so-
just hang porn up on the walls?
Yeah,
it's
popular.
the 70s. The movie's 1980, but I believe so. The novel's 1974,
Yeah.
and I think the movie's basically set in the 70s.
It's when did they say the other guy killed his family? Then, well, I thought they said that was the 70s.
The previous year.
Oh, it was okay. I was assuming it happened a while back, but no, it would
It
have
seemed
happened.
recent.
It was recent.
Was it?
Okay.
All fun stuff.
They
He
did say
says
it, right?
Charles Grady when he meets him. It's Delbert Grady. What's that about? It's weird.
Mm.
Yep.
Interesting.
Interesting. So yeah, he goes for a job interview. So the way the movie's structured is it has these title cards that come up that I think are something like the interview,
Yep.
closing day,
Mhm.
1 month later, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 a.m., 4 p.m.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I noticed they get
They get-
faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just think that's really cool. I like
It is.
everything in the movie is designed to put you off balance. And I think not having a consistent format for what the title cards are denoting time wise is part of that too.
Yeah,
Especially because it's like Wednesday. Like you don't have a date. You know.
yeah,
It's
Right,
just-
yeah.
like what Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like too that once it switches to like, actual time, like numbered time, you're like, oh shit, like
Like now things are getting
this is the-
serious.
yeah,
We're getting
this is
close.
serious. We're getting an end here. So I did like that.
Yeah, for sure. Once it's actual time. I think anytime watching like a documentary or a biopic that there's actually like a specific time that comes up, you always know like, oh, this is supposed to mean something to me.
Well, that was kind of the thing you get from it too, is like while watching it when they do that, and especially the parts that they chose to cut it off at, you almost feel like you're watching like a documentary, like where it's like this. I don't know, it has that very similar feel, and I'm wondering now if documentaries took that from this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, they did. They had very abrupt like scene cuts. Yeah.
Mhm.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Good movie.
I noticed even in
That's
like
about it, right?
Yeah, let's wrap this
Yeah,
up.
that's all.
I noticed even in the very beginning, the interview, like when he arrives to talk to the head like manager, and he's like,
Ullman.
he's like, oh, let's get the other guy in here.
Who's that other guy? What's he do?
What's he do? Well, when they even mention him, the scene cut. They go now. We're at breakfast with Wendy and Danny. And I was like, in any other movie, this guy would just walk in right now. He'd be like, oh, there he was. He's in the other room. But instead, it's like, oh, they need a little bit of time to find this guy. We'll go see what Wendy and Danny are doing. Oh, she's smoking with them at breakfast.
Yeah, that kid had the most secondhand smoke, man.
Really loud.
The next time they did it too was right when they were talking about The Shining, and he like explained something, and like I think the kid had a question, and then it was just like leaving day.
Yep. The cuts are abrupt. There's one in particular time when the music's building, and then there's a big music sting right when the title card comes up. That even on this most recent rewatch got kind of a jump out of me.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so right from the very beginning, it puts you off balance. Everything just seems a little weird, just a little heightened, just a little bit of strangeness coming from everything that Jack Nicholson's doing in this movie. and we start with him in the interview. So
That was one of my notes was, Jack Nicholson's just a crazy person that they started to film one day, huh? Because he does this way too goddamn well. Like, he's just like...
Yeah, that was one of Stephen King's complaints about the movie,
Yes.
is that they should have picked somebody that was like an average Joe, because audiences knew from the very beginning what was going to happen. Like, they knew he was going to, like...
yeah, this is coming after One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so people from the beginning are like, oh, so this guy's crazy, right?
Yeah, honestly, this was only the second time I've seen this movie, and the last time was a while ago, so I didn't remember a lot of it. But by like 15, 20 minutes into this movie, I'm like, oh, he's already off his rocker here. Like this,
Yeah.
I was like, they're not hiding what's going to happen. As soon as they mention like the last caretaker murder his family, like 5 minutes later, you're like, whoa.
Yep.
Jack is almost in murdering mode already.
He starts, even in the interview, he's at a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very unsettling from
By
the very beginning.
30, 40 minutes in, he's already at a 9 or 10. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had a Jack is already crazy note. I think very, very early on, I was like, is he still drinking? Like... And that's,
Right, yeah.
I wasn't sure about that either. It's like, there could have been like a whole part of that where he was like sneaking bottles and like, this is a symptom of advanced alcoholism. Cause I know some crazy hallucination shit starts happening with that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think that's part of it.
His alcoholism threw me off guard because as soon as the interview starts, he mentions like, I'm a writer, and I'm like, oh, okay, here it is. And he's from Maine. And I was like, this is Stephen King. Oh, and his wife loves horror. He mentions that at the beginning. So I was like, okay, I know he likes to be the main character in all his things. But then he's like an alcoholic. And I was like, wow, he usually likes to be the main character. But I feel like it's weird when you make yourself the main character. I'm like, I'm going to make him an alcoholic. He's going to axe murder his whole family. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Is that worse than finding
sometimes
Jack
kids just get
himself?
on your nerves, man.
To say, it's like, is that finding that screenplay worse than finding him right? All work and no play what makes Jack a dull boy? Because it's pretty crazy. My note for that part was, God, writers are insufferable. Because as soon as he's like, I need the space to think about my craft or whatever. I was just, oh, fuck off.
Yeah. So after closing day, you go to 1 month later, and the first scene is Wendy bringing him breakfast in bed, which, like, thanks, Wendy. Maybe say thanks. That's a cool thing you're doing. And he's immediately, she's like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And he's like, well, I really need to work on my writing.
I only slept till 11:30 today, so
Yeah.
I really need to
I
work.
noticed Wendy's the one doing all the work in this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how it is in the book too, but she's like doing
yeah.
the maintenance work.
She's in the boiler room.
Yeah.
She's getting it done.
He's chosen a nocturnal schedule for some reason.
He's on a
I
nocturnal
noticed.
Schedule.
Yes. He's
And-
completely arbitrarily chosen a nocturnal schedule. Yeah.
Not only it's very clear that he's abusive in at least some capacity. They're not very clear if he still is or if he is actually like,
Or according to him, it was one accident 3 years ago.
yeah.
Anybody could have done it.
But he's also a total man-child. I
Their
noticed
kid like that.
at
Yeah.
one point he's locked in the pantry. It doesn't say how long he's in there, but he makes himself a meal, and it's like peanut butter out of a jar, some Oreos, and
Yeah.
I was like, you have access to all the food except for the meat. Like everything is in here, and that's the best you could whip up.
It was
Also, he's
fantastic.
seemingly in there for like 25 minutes. So.
Yeah, but he did. Make
But he's
himself a
made
meal.
like a
got a
little
whole
nest for
mountain of
himself
food.
too. He's made
He's
like a bed
taking a
out of
nap.
cardboard boxes. So we should use this opportunity to transition into talking about the performances a little bit. So as someone who hasn't seen The Shining before, it being maybe the signature role of Jack Nicholson's career, almost definitely the signature role of Shelley Duvall's career, what did you think of what Jack Nicholson is doing in this role?
Can you get a little more specific with that? That's a broad.
So he's firing basically 100 miles an hour heaters right over the fucking plate from scene one in this one. He's like so keyed up, so weird, almost doing like what Jim Carrey's going to do in the 90s in Ace Ventura pretty much already. So was that surprising to you that like, oh, it's such a prestigious filmmaker and this, movie that people talk about as one of like, oh, the most important movies ever made and stuff. Then you get in there and Jack Nicholson's already going like this and stuff just from the beginning.
Oh, I think that wasn't as big of a problem because I'm just used to Jack Nicholson at this point.
Okay. So not surprising or anything.
No,
I
no.
don't think it's a problem. I think it's a great performance.
I
I'm
was
saying it's weird as hell.
I was expecting him to be Jack Nicholson. I think it added to it because the whole thing was very like you were on edge the whole time because he's so erratic and like, yeah, it's just to be around people like that. You know the mindset Shelley Duvall is in, and he did a very good job of portraying that. So I think maybe it would be unexpected, but I think it's pretty accurate. I know Stephen King didn't like it as much because you can get that feeling right away from
Critics
him.
hated it too.
But he's a crazy person. They're not supposed to make sense. So I don't know.
I thought Jack Nicholson's performance like carried the whole movie. I mean, lots of it can stand on its own, but I just thought it was incredible. Like I went and looked it up after. I could not believe he was not nominated for an Oscar for that.
No nominations. It did get Golden Razzie nominations though.
I did see that.
I thought Jack Nicholson was great in this.
I mean, if you want to give like some like credence to the critics, sure. If he could have dialed it back in the beginning, like if somebody had reeled him in for just like the first 15 minutes, fine. But like it didn't
because he was unsettling from the beginning.
It did need to like evolve more if you wanted it to be a surprise, but I don't think you needed it to be a surprise. It was going to happen.
Movie worked just fine.
Like you said, like he was erratic, so you knew what was going to happen eventually, but now you're just waiting for him to snap, and you don't know when it's going to be, how it's like exactly what's going to happen.
Yes.
Obviously you're suspicious he's going to try and murder the family with an axe. Because that's what the last guy did, but you don't know when he's gonna snap or exactly how it's gonna happen,
or like why, like what's his justification gonna be for doing this.
Yeah, so I think it was okay that you knew right from the beginning. I think it could have been interesting to like try to leave it as a surprise, but I don't think it had a huge negative impact.
I actually kind of liked it too, because one of Stephen King's MOs is that he tells you what's going to happen at like the beginning of the book. Like, you know, people are going to die at like the beginning or something like that. So that's not actually what happened in the book this time, but like he's like
done that before.
Yeah,
it's a classic. Him being like, it was a cold winter at the Overlook when Jack Torrance tried to murder his whole family with an axe. Let's get into that.
We're going to tell you about it for the next 300 pages, and you're going to be interested.
That's true.
The movie is very different from the book, though.
So talking about Nicholson's performance, Stanley Kubrick is one of, if not the preeminent, meticulous, perfectionist weirdo of cinema, especially 20th century cinema. So he would have these actors do the scenes over and over and over again. Sometimes over 100 takes.
Oh my God.
The scene between Halloran and Danny where he's explaining The Shining I don't know if it still has, I assume because of just labor laws, it probably still has this record. They shot it 148 times.
Oh my God.
Which is a Guinness World Record.
Please tell me they used take one.
So
you got it the first time.
Yeah, we had the first time. I'm just bored. So Kubrick would have him do this, and it would produce this effect of people just sort of losing their minds. And he would tell Nicholson to go bigger, and eventually, you just start making sounds, and then you start doing weird stuff with your face, and then he's doing like that lizard tongue lick thing,
Yep.
and stuff. So it's just an effort of just mentally breaking everyone down until they start not even thinking about it and just physically reacting, I guess. So with that being said, we should really talk about Shelley Duvall in this movie.
I am dying to know what you thought of her performance, Robbie.
Okay. Sorry. God, I really liked her performance, and I was trying to think of how I was going to word this. I think it's fantastic to see someone like power through and persevere in a movie in a way that so clearly comes from a person who wants to run away the entire time. Like it seemed like there was nothing about this person's character that made her want to fight whatsoever, but the need to protect her kid, and to portray that without seeming weak or helpless, but to just kind of seem like someone who has been dealing with a crazy person for their entire married life. It was just, I thought it was a powerful performance is what I thought of it. I really enjoyed it, and I liked that aspect that I don't think I've seen before in like I don't know, with a victim character. I'm not sure what the word would be for it, but
yeah, the sort of damsel of the movie, the kind of
like she was clearly a damsel.
It's sort of like the virgin character in a slasher movie kind of thing, the final girl sort of vibe.
But she never had to like change herself, or like she was never expected to be something more. She wasn't expected to like buck up and be tough. Like she just kind of like fought back the best she could and did manage to get away with at the end. I don't know. I liked her character. I thought it was pretty
Spoilers, jeez. So Ray, you can probably speak to this better than I can. We should note Ray is the podcast's preeminent Stephen King correspondent. And I also have read this book, but it's been a really long time. You've read this book multiple times, including earlier this week. Wendy's really different in the book, right?
Yeah.
She's like a stronger, more independent person. That was I know that's one of the problems Stephen King had.
Yeah. I mean, she isn't like, I don't know. I never thought that she was like a super strong character
Well,
in the
yeah.
book. But she definitely is stronger than she's portrayed in the movie.
Yeah,
I really hated her character in the movie. Like even the first time I ever watched The Shining, I was like, wow, I hate this lady. Like she's
Okay.
just screaming and like, I don't know, the way that she runs, the way that she holds that bat in the movie, I'm like, have you never seen a baseball bat in your entire life?
She's
Like,
running with the
and
knife.
she's running and her arms are flailing
The
whole
way
time.
she runs and holds the weapons, I die. I just imagine Stanley Kubrick being like, no, like do it, but like how like a person would do it. Like I know I want you to run, but like a human being, yeah, like but hold it, but normal.
She looks like a limp noodle the whole time. Like that's how she like walks and reacts to things and but anyway, the way that Robbie described it, I think is how she is in the book. Like
Okay.
she's supposed to be, she's kind of this like battered wife who's been living with an alcoholic like for years and trying to save the marriage, but she doesn't really want to deal with it, but she's like trying to protect her kid.
So how I wrote off those like mannerisms was she absolutely knew how to hold a bat. She absolutely did not want to hold the bat like that. She did not want to be like she wanted the situation to go away. She did not want to escalate the situation. So I was reading it as everything she was doing, like, yeah, she was doing it ridiculously because she did not want to be doing it. She was only doing it when it was the absolute only thing she could. But I can totally see she does run.
Yeah.
The
very
run-
And then the
ridiculous.
part where she's like, with the part with the bat, where she's like crying and like trying to like, I think we need to bring him to a doctor. And then he like mimics her, and I'm like, yeah, that's how I felt
You
too.
think maybe
I
we
would have
should
done
bring
that
him
also.
to a doctor.
Maybe we should bring him to a doctor.
So I
You
did
can't
like
remember.
her performance, but I felt like there were like I would go back and forth. There were some times I'm like, wow, I'm really happy with what she's doing, and then other times like, what the fuck is she doing?
It seems like we have maybe 4 different perspectives. Just to jump in here, I think this is perhaps watching it again this time. I was very keyed into what Shelley Duvall was doing, and it's easily one of my favorite performances ever committed to screen. I think it's just a Titanic achievement. Honestly, it's amazing.
You
See, the
love
way
it.
that you were saying, like they made him do it like 100 times or whatever,
Yeah.
I can see that because it seems like she like turned the dial up to 10 basically. Like she had an instruction
Yeah.
and they're like, no, do more, do more, do more, do more. Now she's like flailing and kind of being
Like I said, the way she runs and stuff, sometimes I'm like, that part I just can't get over. But like the part you're talking about where she's crying with the bat, talking to like Jack, and he's like going crazy. I love that scene. I think they both do great. Like their performances
Yes.
there on point.
When I saw that
One-
scene, I'm
one of
like,
the
this
most
is what the clip
unsettling-
would be at
Even,
the
like-
Academy
Yeah.
Awards.
Yes, even in the beginning when she's like talking to that doctor, and I feel like she gives out the real good Batwoman vibes. Where she's like, oh, he had a little like,
Well, it's just a thing you do a million times.
That's a thing you
and
do a
just,
million
like,
times.
When you pull him out of the street,
Yes,
or
right, with her Vermont, Texas drawl.
Yeah, yeah.
and she's
Stuff like that.
smiling. and-
Just how hopeful and happy she was when she was like, and he hasn't had a drink in 5 months was just like crushing because you're
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, how many times has that been said
Yeah.
before? Like,
her whole performance to me is just so heartbreaking this time. Just you see just her whole world shattering in every scene. Essentially,
yeah.
it's
that like the scene with the bat, like when he was mocking her, I agree was absolutely perfect. Like her world, like she just realized like fully and indisputably he's fucking nuts. Like she saw the manuscript and she realized all the little thoughts she had, all of the like nope, and now she has to deal with them and like
Did anyone else get a little bit of a laugh that like the first 90 pages of the manuscript wasn't enough? She had to keep going. Like, well, maybe there's like maybe it makes sense if you read the
Just
beginning.
like one ruffle was but she wanted to find the spot where it was like, oh, that's a joke. Imagine if I did that. But like it wasn't there.
Yeah,
Like
I know. Like, what did
You
you
get to like page, like the first 10 pages are normal, and then just like character that says, all right, I'm going to type this for 100 pages, but then it's going to be cool after that.
like, is that what she's looking for?
I'm just hoping.
Yep. But that whole scene was great, where she's like backing away slowly with the bat too, and then when she starts like kind of even swinging it a little bit, and I'm like, oh, it is. It was really crushing.
Stop swinging the bat, Wendy.
Yeah.
Give me the bat.
Yeah.
And he starts like licking his lips and
Yes.
stuff.
Wendy.
Wendy. And he's doing like,
I
doing
also-
like a Tim Allen, like, you know, it's. So that scene,
even like right after when she drags him to the pantry and she's sitting there just yanking on at the pantry door over and over, and she's like crying as this thing won't open, and the camera is clearly positioned where you can see like this a lot, like you can see everyone.
It's still locked. It's
Like,
you gotta,
I haven't
it's
used a lot of like doors like that, but I would know immediately. And she's like
She's
crying.
just so panicked. That
Yep.
she
yeah, I
can't-
think,
yeah.
I mean, it's a state. She knows you're against the clock. If he's
Yep.
obviously going to overpower you if he gets up.
I was upset she didn't also drag the bat with her, because when he started to wake up, I'm like, all right, you're gonna have to bonk. Where's the bat, Wendy? Where's the bat?
You're gonna have to bonk him.
Yeah,
He was too heavy. She needed both her hands.
gotta bonk him. Yeah, that's.
Bad Johnny's get the bonk bat.
So that scene, just to key in on it, while we're still talking about Shelley Duvall and the scene in the Colorado lounge, she's swinging the bat. She's in maybe the second or third most terrified she is in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she's walking up the stairs backwards and swinging the bat and all that stuff. Kubrick made her film it 127 times. So yes, I'm not sure which take they used, but she was very tired. Whichever
First
take they freaking used.
You were right, Shelley. You got it the first time. I'm
So
sorry.
she's in.
You know what, guys? We actually got this whole movie first take.
Yeah.
I don't know why we did all these.
We were done week 3. So like I said, a 56-week shoot. The first few scenes, she's not in emotional terror. Most of the movie, she is in this elevated state of emotional terror, and she stays there for over a year. I can't imagine what that does to a person. After this movie, Shelley Duvall makes some other movies, essentially mostly transitions to children's programming. She produces a couple different really successful kids like anthology shows, and then basically retires from Hollywood in the early thousands. Sort of disappears.
She's staying at a hotel in Colorado.
No. So she pops up. She purposely like cuts ties and like gets out. Turns out she moved to Texas. In 2016, Dr. Phil tracks her down.
God damn it.
And they bring her on for a very, very painful to watch interview where they let her like talk about, you know, kind of just ramble on about like conspiracy theories and stuff. And like they don't protect her at all. It's extremely exploitative. And obviously there's a huge backlash. She just disappears again. In the last couple years, people have actually tracked her down that have good intentions that aren't Dr. Phil. Just earlier this year, I think in the Hollywood Reporter, there's a pretty good article about her where someone actually went and interviewed her, and she's in her 70s now. So any kind of like mental weirdness it doesn't actually seem to be quite as exaggerated as Dr. Phil made it seem. Has like really good memories about this time and stuff. To this day, even starting then to this day, she's talked about how terrible of an experience this was, but sort of has always couched it in a way that it's like pretty diplomatic. Like she'll talk about how stressed she was, how her hair was falling out, all this terrible stuff she was going through. And then
The symptoms not actually.
Yes.
Happened, no.
And then she'll say at the end, but Stanley Kubrick was like very warm and friendly to me. And like Jack Nicholson was very gentle, and like everyone was like really happy and stuff. And it just like, it's always just like, you feel so bad for her because it's just, you know, it just isn't something that she seems like she wants to get into. Earlier in her career, it's in the 80s and you're a woman. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, Stanley Kubrick and Jack Nicholson are assholes if you want to continue working, obviously.
Yep.
So I just feel really, you can't help but like your heart just breaks for her, because I don't know how you get in that emotional state, but I imagine it's by being emotionally abused IRL, and then to stay in that state for basically over a year. And I just don't know what that does to a person. And then for people to say that she sucks, and for her to fucking win the Golden Razzie for Worst Actress.
She definitely was not Worst Actress.
No.
Although
First
this movie
year.
got a lot of hate.
Oh, got a ton of hate. People are wrong. And the Razzies and cynicism, those guys. Any worst movie of the year, you list that too. I mean, it's just, why be cynical? Don't be an asshole.
I'll have to find the article. I read it a while back, but there's a bunch of directors, and Kubrick is one of them, where there is behind the scenes of like the torment he puts people through to get these scenes. It was a big crack piece. It was very good, but I think this one was on it. I know Birds was on it, but that's a different. But I'm pretty sure she specifically was on this. But
yeah, and it's tough. And like I've said, she's never like been so straightforward. And her defense, why would you want to get into it at this point? Maybe, but other people, Angelica Houston, who was dating Jack Nicholson at the time, who was around the set, was saying like, oh yeah, it seemed like she was being for sure emotionally abused, but like I wasn't there. Maybe I misread the situation, but that's just the impression I got.
Yeah, your hair doesn't fall out for no reason.
Right. Yeah. Right. So anyway,
They got a good performance out of her.
yeah, I think it might legitimately be the most terrified anyone's ever been on screen.
I also love when he's obviously like chopping the door on with the axe and she's just screaming.
That scene specifically, I think
It's so
very
good.
iconic.
Yeah, I know it's very iconic, but
It's-
like she does
it's
a really
really
good job.
fucking effective.
And I know
Yeah.
you're just screaming, but like
Yeah.
she does it right.
Yeah.
yeah, there's a reason that's her face in that scene and her eyes especially just about as iconic as him pushing his face through the crack in the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to be mean, but a lot of times I was concerned her eyes were going to fall out.
So we can talk a little bit about the filming process. So they use these wide angle lenses to make the spaces feel cavernous and the characters to feel really small and overpowered by the negative space around them, but at the same time feel really claustrophobic by this sort of labyrinthian hotel that they're stuck in and the literal hedge maze labyrinth that they are occasionally stuck in. When you use a wide angle lens really close to your face, it's like when you take a selfie and you look terrible. Same idea. So your features get really elongated and really stretched, and he just happened on purpose to pick Shelley Duvall, who already has a kind of bird-like appearance, and Jack Nicholson, who has like this crazy angular face already, and then shoot them with wide-angle lenses, and it makes them look like monsters. That's on purpose.
I didn't think she looked like a monster. I just thought there were a few times her eyes looked like they were going to fall out.
Yeah, but she looks kind of crazy the whole time. Everyone looks
bit.
like everyone's
Yeah.
face is just a little bit distorted, and it produces this sort of like, maybe not even consciously, this sort of effect of just like, dissonance, I think, throughout the whole movie.
No, absolutely. Especially with the kid. I'm glad that makes a lot of sense, because I think you see it a lot less because his features are softer, so it's not as is noticeable. But I did notice he felt very like wooden the whole time, and I think you could see the expressions a lot less through that lens, which is interesting.
What do you think about his performance? I feel like he's very important in this. And I feel like it's hard to get like a really solid performance out of a. How old is he?
6.
I was going to say he's
So
real
it's
little.
Danny Lloyd, he's legitimately 6.
Yeah. I mean, I know Jack is like really the main performance, but Danny has a lot of important things he does.
Well,
in this movie.
once you get into Jack's descent, they really switch his perspective to be from Danny's perspective,
Yeah.
and then a little bit from Wendy also. But you start with Jack, and then you really shift to literally the camera is over Danny's shoulder in multiple scenes. So
Yeah, I think he did a really good job. I mean, right from the very beginning, I wrote this kid is like a 30-year-old with burnout.
Yeah.
He's just
having
tired.
An imaginary man in your mouth telling you things will do that to you.
Well, and
like,
that's,
oy vey, I just need to lay down.
as you go through it, I think I realized like that's the performance you want from him. Like that's exactly like what is intended from his character. And I wasn't going to criticize the kid's acting anyway, but then when you started saying the takes, I was like, all right, so that's how they got such a great performance out of him, because I was like, I don't know how you make a kid seem this, like he seemed like he's seen some shit, and it's like, oh, he has seen some shit. It's this scene 120 times.
It's funny that you say it that way too, because in the book, most of the book is told from Danny's point of view, and like he's basically the main character. It's not Jack.
Okay.
But a big theme throughout it is that he's so young, but he's trying to grapple with like all of these really adult concepts that he doesn't understand, but he needs to in order to survive. And he gets very, very burnt out. So yeah, he's basically like, you know, a 30-year-old now in like a 5-year-old body.
Yeah, that's totally right. Yeah, I think he does a good job. They would just kind of like have the assistant director play with him in between takes. One, to like keep him, you know, he's a 6-year-old. You can't just have him sitting waiting for his scene, but also to get him out of scenes where there's any kind of violence or, you know, anything like that happening.
Yep.
So he's famously very protected, the opposite of what they did with Shelley Duvall throughout the filming of this movie, where
Why does my mommy look so terrified all the time?
where they wouldn't really tell him what's going on aside from like the next scene you're in. Okay, you're going to be doing this, and you got to go get your fire truck out of the room, but don't wake Daddy. And you'd be like, oh, okay, I got it. And I guess he did internalize a lot. It wasn't just sort of, you know, there was some performance from him that the people who made the movie give him credit for, that like he really understood what they were going for in a lot of scenes. They just didn't give him the whole picture of what's happening all the time.
So you got to address after every sentence you say to your dad, say, yes, Dad. Otherwise, he's going to beat the shit out of you. Okay.
But
that scene with the fire truck, when he, that
was a
me.
tough scene.
That's like the tensest scene in the movie. It just keeps going.
It does.
Going
That
and going.
And you're like, I don't
movie-
like how you're hugging that
Yeah,
kid,
Dad.
man.
It's
No,
so
Dad.
drawn out. Like, and did you notice how much space there is in between each like line that they say?
Yes.
Like, there's so much like dead air between them.
I could probably more easily count the times I didn't have chills going through me than the amount of times I did. It was just that whole movie. I was like tingling. It was nuts.
One of the things I love about this movie, and it happens so much with Danny, some of it probably maybe reading into too much of, you never really see Danny in the same shot as something terrifying. It's his face going like, oh no, and then you see the thing. They probably weren't actually in the same set at the same time. One of the things I love about this movie is that it subverts how horror movies work, because pretty much anytime there's a ghost or a scare, you see the character reacting to it for like a few seconds, and it holds on a close-up of them being like, oh, there's something scary. The movie's about to show it to you. Get ready. And then it shows it to you, which is the opposite of how horror movies work typically.
Mm-hmm.
And
Especially today, yeah.
it just produces this really crazy effect. And you're just so, everything about the movie is just throwing you off. It's just this weird kind of remove that.
It gives you the, like, what you really want from horror movies, where you make the better monster, because it gives you those few seconds to be like, oh my God, what is this?
Yes.
Kind of thing.
It lets you, based on how the characters are reacting, and between Danny and Wendy, two of the best performances of scared in a movie ever. You get to just like make it up in your mind, and then you see something, you're like, wow, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, and
Which, like, if it cut and it was just some guy like, hey, it's me, you'd be like, oh, that's stupid.
Yeah, some dog blowing a dude or something.
Although the one time where the guy's like, hey, good party, and when he's like, oh no, you're like, he just wants to say it's a good party.
he had an axe wound.
He did have an act, like some kind of.
Yeah, but he's
head wound.
being like pleasant about it. He's
Very
Yeah.
courteous.
He's
about
not whining about his axe wound.
So I really like that they did that, the filming, the two separate scene things, like you were saying, because even right now, like when Danny got the bruises on his neck, and they even show you like there was the woman in the tub, or maybe there wasn't, but like your thought is, did Jack, was he awake at some point? Did he actually do it and not remember? Like I don't think he remembers doing it. You know what I?
Yeah, there's so much ambiguity in the movie that I guess Stephen King hated, because there is not ambiguity to this extent in the book. Whereas if you really think about it, aside from the scene where it's Jack who is being, approached by ghosts in the gold room at the party, or in the bathroom with the old lady, anytime Danny, and then even later Wendy, sees a ghost, they're not threatening them. They don't even move towards them. They're never attacked throughout the movie, aside from by Jack. And I just feel like that's a really cool concept.
It's true.
Again, that is not what happens in the book. They get chased by topiaries in the book.
Yes.
Topiary tree.
Yeah, in the book there's not a hedge maze, it's topiaries.
So
Okay.
it's just
like animals, and the animals
It's like
will,
a tiger made out of leaves.
yeah,
Gotcha.
and the animals like move when they're not looking, and then they chase them.
Gotcha. Do they explain in the book, like, was it Jack that bruised Danny, or did Danny actually get attacked by something?
Danny did get attacked by the lady in the bathtub.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And by taking that out of the movie, and you're like, well, nothing's ever actually attacked Danny that we've seen.
Right.
It could have been Jack.
Yeah.
Well, that's
They
'cause,
did
like,
have like a
Wendy was in the basement. Jack was in some kind of fugue state.
they had like a long period in the book where Jack wasn't sure though, where he
Yes.
was and Wendy did think that Jack had done it for a while.
Gotcha.
But they just didn't know. And then it was like a big thing because Danny had said like, Mr. Halloran said that nothing in the hotel can hurt me. But then it actually did.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's tough. Because in the movie, you never really fully sure the ghosts are real or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
and
were
that's
so
part of
many
it.
parts where I was like, is
Yes.
Jack talking to ghosts? Is he like
Yes. Is it cabin fever or is it ghosts?
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's supposed to be a big part of the movie is
It
you're
does,
never
uh-huh.
really sure.
It does answer a little bit because, well, especially at the end when Wendy's seeing stuff, although she's in kind of a odd state at the end too. So it's like, I guess you could try to argue that she's not seeing ghosts, but I feel like
Yeah.
she definitely is.
It's supposed to be a
and
little
again,
bit of both.
nothing attacks her during that run through the thing.
No.
It's just her seeing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to
Pictures
I
in
don't know.
a book.
Almost everything could be explained by a hallucination, but I think it's supposed to be like some of it is like Jack actually just going crazy, but it's influenced by the hotel. And you can tell that there is some sort of supernatural thing going on because the pantry gets unlocked.
Well, and so
But the hotel is like influencing it, but
the direction,
it's not like totally the hotel's fault.
where I was like a little like iffy on it, and I'm sure it's very different. I was thinking almost like a similar cabin in the woods motif where like they had to make a sacrifice. Like I didn't think they were like the person in the dog mask. I didn't think that was a ghost. I thought there was some weird like rich person conspiracy where they have to get a family here to murder someone for the hotel. Do you know what I mean? I went more on like but the person with the axe wound in the head kind of ruins that because he was definitely a ghost.
Yeah.
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 I like the concept, the way that Kubrick constructs this is it isn't that the hotel is trying to kill them, is that the hotel is trying to get them to kill each other.
Yeah.
And that seems like that's a more what it actually is trying to make happen. And I think that's a pretty cool concept. It's a
Mhm.
lot more, obviously the Shining book is in this sort of vein of modern Gothic horror, but I think the movie being just about a descent into madness and purely someone being pushed all the way to the edge to serve some ambiguous, nefarious end game. I think that's even better Gothic
Mhm.
kind of horror
Yeah.
to me.
I did read after too that one of the things that somebody pointed out is every time Jack sees a ghost, there's a mirror in the scene. Like he's looking towards a mirror. So it could be like implying that it really is all in his head and he's just looking at himself.
That's
It's just
interesting.
projections like he's putting out.
And then you could write off when Shelley sees things at the end, like she's finally opening her eyes to the truth of what he is. So she's not actually seeing ghosts, she's seeing his past behaviors and how horrific they were, if you wanted to.
That time he brought all that blood home in that elevator.
That time that dog man blew him.
Oh, so since we're talking about that, well,
It's like, oh, damn, my elevator trap didn't work. I didn't want you to see this.
I
That's
will
the
say that
personification of all the blood he spilled throughout his
there
life.
you go.
Ooh, yeah,
There
yeah.
you go.
Different level.
So the movie is obviously very different from the book, but this is one of my favorite book to movie adaptations. I can see why Stephen King didn't like it because it totally tore
Yes.
apart everything that he did.
Yeah.
But almost
Yes.
everything that's iconic about the movie is not in the book. So the movie
So the
really stands on
elevator
its own.
with blood isn't in the book.
That's not in the book at all.
Gotcha.
Him writing out the play with the dull boy thing, that's not in the book. Him
Oh, wow.
chopping down the door with an axe is not in the book.
he has
maze
he
is
has
not
a
in the
roque
book.
mallet.
He has a roque mallet, yeah.
And Danny doesn't say red rum. He says roque, croak, right?
No, he says red rum in the book.
Does he not also say something about roque and croak?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
Red rum's in there too, then, I guess.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I remember a lot
The
of
red
focus
rum
on
reveal
roque,
was
croak.
very good.
Yes. Red rum is in there and everybody's like, red drum? Like what
Right,
what are
yeah.
you talking about?
You want to...
And he's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, that's the whole. Yeah.
Danny, not till you're 21.
Yeah,
Won't
so the
stop
maze
talking
isn't in the
about
book.
spiced rum.
There's the topiaries that aren't in there. The ending is totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Just it's so different from the book, but it stands on its own so well.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really interesting. Like the whole thing is different, but it's such a great movie still.
So you saying that it's like kind of this rare, you're one of your favorite book to movie adaptations. I agree in the sense that I really love the movie. Obviously, I've said I think it's maybe a perfect movie. Probably my favorite movie that we've done on the podcast. But I also love the book, and they're like
I
really,
love the book.
they're really different experiences.
They're so different.
The horror feels different. The vibe is pretty different, but they're both really good at what they do.
They
So
are.
yeah, if
This
you
is
haven't read
one
the
of my
book, it's-
favorite. Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies.
it
And
flies
after
by,
I
man.
watched the movie, I read the book, and it was like literally one of my favorite literary experiences
it
reading
flies
that
by?
book.
What?
No, never mind.
No, I said it flies by.
Oh, I thought-
Like reading the book, you'll be like, oh my god, I've already read 100
Mhm,
pages. I didn't
yeah.
realize,
You mentioned like the horror
It
is like
flies fine, I
kind of
think.
different in the book. What did you guys think about the horror in this movie? Like, was this a scary movie to you?
This is the scariest. Like, I'm dead serious. I really was
The
scared
whole
by this
time
movie.
you just have goosebumps.
Yeah, this is my type of horror. This is the type of horror
Yeah.
that actually bothers me.
It's so weird because I feel like I'm normally a horrible bitch when it comes to horror. This movie doesn't really scare me though. It is very tense the whole time, but I'm not like scared. I would say
That's a really good question. So I'm pretty wimpy,
I'm super.
but this is also the kind of horror that I dig,
Mhm.
and I've seen it so many times now that like I'm not scared. It's still a little disturbing. I think I always forget how weird Jack Nicholson goes, how scared Shelley Duvall looks, and that's still like deeply affecting to me. But the scares in it don't necessarily scare me anymore. But it's sort of just so good at building anticipation that you can't help but be like, all right, he's on the tricycle. Is this the time that he turns left and he's no? Okay, no, this is the time he tries the door and he goes in. No, this is the time the door's locked. And it's just like building the anticipation. I love this movie so much.
I think the scariest part about it is like you could cut every supernatural element out of this movie and still make a terrifying movie.
Mhm.
Like you could it could just be an alcoholic, abusive writer husband locked in a hotel with no outside communication for 4 months in the winter. Also terrifying. You don't need the ghosts. The ghosts are a fantastic part of it. It's just like that mixed in with the supernatural where it's like you're spending that time of like, does it even make a difference if there's ghosts or not? Like when you're judging how scared you are? I don't know.
So you're saying the hotel could have probably accomplished the same thing if it like just turned the heat up a little bit on the stove and had Wendy burn the toast for breakfast. Okay,
Pretty
he's getting
much.
the axe. That's all we need to do, boys.
Well, like, and that's we were saying like the descent into the madness and like being pushed to the edge, but I feel like Shelley was pushed. Jack, they were just like, "Hey, you should jump over the edge." He was like, "Hell yeah!"
It just
I should
didn't
jump
take
over
much.
that fucking edge.
He's a very flawed
Yes.
character from the beginning, so it was just easy.
All the ghosts when he came in for the interview, they're like, I don't think this is gonna be an easy one. With Grady, it was like a whole few months of it, but I think we're gonna get him by like month 2. And then,
Actually,
yeah.
in the book, I think it's month 2.
There you go.
Yeah, it's in the book. Tell you it's December 2nd that everything goes down.
But yeah, overall, I wasn't like
Yeah.
creepy scared. Like there were
It's definitely a different kind of horror.
like I said, like the part where
it's mood.
Danny goes to get his fire truck, you're like, oh no, the whole time.
Yeah.
I think it's tough to answer the question too because I consider myself a bitch when it comes to horror movies too. But like, just because something like Saw would bother me more, and just because I'd say like I can't watch it, I don't find it scarier.
Yeah.
I read those plot points and I laugh at them. Like I think it's A, interesting, and like B, like over the top. But you know what? Like I don't think it's scary. I think it's gory and unnecessary.
Yeah.
This is something I consider scary. So it's a
Yeah.
hard kind of like.
I don't want to stretch it too far, but like vibing on the gothic horror thing, for me, it's almost like it's not, there's not jump scares or whatever. It's more of a intriguing sort of construction of the way it produces the thrilling aspects of it. And it's sort of me more being like tempted to like go deeper into it, into this kind of weird. I wish I had written it down because I feel bad stealing it. So I'll just say there was a YouTube video I was watching that refers to it as a sort of intangible second layer just simmering below the surface of the whole movie
Yes.
that you can't quite ever put your finger on, but I want to know more. I want to know what those voices are chanting when Wendy's running around the hotel.
I literally
You
went
know?
and tried to look it up. Like I
Yeah,
was
exactly.
scouring
Like, what are they
Google
saying?
after. I was like, what did they say?
So it's like I want to like get my head in there, and that's how, in a Lovecraft story I'd end up being Jack because I wanted more knowledge. But so there's that, and then there's the reason that we're doing this as the first episode of the new year, which is also this sort of intangible thing that I can't quite put my finger on. Then I'm not alone in this. A lot of people think the party that he's at is a New Year's Eve party.
It seems like it.
I also thought it was a New Year's Eve party until I reread the book this week.
It
Yep.
makes sense that it can't be because the hotel is closed for the winter.
Yes, the
Like, that
hotel
is
is closed for
very-
the winter. That's absolutely true.
They mentioned that.
Yeah.
And it's not like a new thing. I said the entire time it's been open, it's been closed for the winter.
I'm pretty sure they give us the date for it. I think it's in July.
It's
July.
a 4th of July party.
It's July
Yeah.
1921.
It's a thing though. If you look up, like I googled it.
It
It's
is
like,
a
is it
thing.
a New Year's Eve party? And everyone's like, yes. Oh wait, no, it's not. And then they show the
It's so
picture.
formal.
It's so formal. They do like
It's
the
so
gold.
formal.
It's the gold ball, and I feel like
Yeah.
gold streamers are very.
It's like a
New
20s kind of
Year's,
thing.
like-
There is no red, white, and blue.
No,
No,
no. In the
no.
book, it's actually
Literally
like a
no red, white, and
masquerade
blue.
party too.
Yes.
And they have a huge emphasis on midnight in the book.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they have like a whole
exactly.
unmasking at midnight. So it's like, oh, well, then it must
like
be
every
New
July
Year's
4th
Eve.
party.
Yeah,
Right, exactly. It's
actually in the
it's
book
pretty
it's not July.
explicitly
Yeah,
a New Year's Eve party.
yeah. In the book it's not July 4th either, though. It's August 29th because it's my birthday.
Oh, nice.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Happy birthday.
thanks. Yeah, but
It's just supposed to be like a hotel. Oh, it's 4th of July party. But
So that's like an end of summer kind of party. or
it was like
something?
a grand reopening party.
Oh, okay.
So
that because I looked at the date on the picture at the end is 1921, but the hotel opened in 1909.
yeah.
So I was like, why did they?
in the book they talk about how it just
Because
constantly-
9, 2, and 1 make 12.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Just ignore the first one.
Yeah.
And it works.
In the book, they talk about how like everybody that's ever owned the hotel, it failed. So
Okay.
like there was decades it sat vacant. And then like new owners would come and they'd like try to redo it. Even in the movie, they talk about how they like had people come in and refurbish everything.
And in the book, the owner, Derwent,
Yeah.
he's like been disgraced or whatever. So he's tried to hide that he owns it or something like that.
Yeah, he
right?
keeps like rebuying it under like different like shady company names.
Yeah. And so when Jack asks Lloyd, like, who's buying my drinks, and he gets kind of mad about it, and Lloyd's like, that's a matter that doesn't concern you or whatever. It kind of hints at that from the book, I guess. But
Yeah. They have a lot
it leaves
of
it more ambiguous, so you can be like, it's the devil's buying his drinks or whatever.
Ghosts.
Yeah.
Ghost drinks.
Well, actually, I
Oh,
think
was
even
just
in
like,
the so
nobody's buying your drinks, man. It's a hallucination. But
yeah. Well, Jack thinks it's like the whole Durant thing is like a big conspiracy sort of
Yes.
thing, and so he's trying to get to the bottom of that through the book. But really, like the management of the
Because
hotel
that's
is,
what
like,
he wants to
people's
write the
spirit.
book. That's what he wants to write
Gotcha.
about, right?
Yeah, he wants. Well, he is writing a play. He goes to the hotel with the intent of writing a play, but as he starts like getting more involved with the hotel, he's like, actually, I want to learn more about the hotel. So he's like crazily like going through the basement, like ruffling through like milk
Yeah.
receipts and like trying to figure out stuff about the hotel.
Yes.
And he just gets like really involved.
There's a
in
lot
it.
of basement
His-
business, I remember.
A lot of basement.
his
stuff.
descent into madness is probably a lot more interesting in the book.
Yes, it's a lot more.
Yeah, you don't
practical.
just start at the precipice and then all downhill.
You could probably watch him like as he's finding more information, slowly lose his mind.
Yeah.
More
Oh,
and
yeah.
more. That's
It's a
probably-
very different story. I would really highly recommend like reading
Good
it
book.
now after you've watched the movie and you can see
Hmm.
what the differences are.
be interesting.
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
So the differences make for an interesting dilemma for Mike Flanagan, who made the Dr. Sleep movie, to reconcile, because the book and the movie end in very different places.
Doctor Sleep is
It's
somehow
the sequel to The Shining.
Danny as an adult. right?
Yeah, it only came out in
It's newish.
2013, 2012, something like that.
Yeah. I actually haven't seen it. So
Okay, well, the movie's even more recent, but the book itself that Stephen King wrote only came out within the last decade, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, he wrote a sequel. Okay.
Uh-huh. And and it's Danny as an adult. He goes by Dan now.
That's good because I was going to ask, they specifically like, your son is more powerful than blah, 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 blah. Great note. Never going to see anything to do with that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so Mike Flanagan, who made Dr. Sleep. We don't have to talk about it too much because I'm the only one here who has seen it and I haven't even read it. So I know it's different because, I don't know. Is it okay if we spoil the book for you? It came out in 1974. You've had time.
I'll read it anyway.
Okay. The Overlook's destroyed at the end of the book.
That makes sense. Okay.
Overlook's not destroyed at the end of the movie. The Dr. Sleep movie, he tried to make a sequel to both, and the climax of it takes place at the Overlook.
Interesting.
Huh.
And the Overlook doesn't exist in the book. So it's just sort of like, I think it's just like a park now in the book. I could be wrong. After all, it was an Indian burial ground.
Yeah. What was up with that? Like at that period of time where everything was just Indian burial grounds.
So when does Poltergeist come out? A couple years later, right?
I think so.
I don't know.
So that's
a good
like
question.
the pull for Indian burial ground, right? So
But it's been in more things that I feel like
White Man's Burden.
Stephen King did that too in Pet Cemetery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
So-
Indian burial ground.
So
He just
one
likes
of-
Indian burial grounds.
Well,
One
actually,
of
it's
the
not
theories
Indian
about
burial
The
ground in
Shining,
this
right?
book, but
Oh.
it was funny that they put it in the movie. I was just like, okay, that explains everything. Indian burial ground, of course.
So one of the things that, maybe Kubrick is saying that this is about is the American genocide of Native Americans.
Yep.
There's so many instances of that Calumet can with the Native American in the headdress on it. In the Room 237 documentary, there's a theory about which direction the cans are facing and what that means. And you see like different portraits of Native Americans on the walls in different parts of the movie while different lines of dialogue are happening. And it all means that, or it means Kubrick faked the moon landing, or it's about the Holocaust. Who knows?
That's fun. It's interesting you say that because like when they mentioned like the building of the hotel, they said they were building it in 1907 and they repelled Indian attacks. And I was like, that seems ridiculous. So I had to Google a timeline. And like the last U.S. skirmish we had with the Native Americans was in 1890. So to have like people attacking a hotel on like the frontiers, like that's very plausible. 1968 for Indian civil rights. Sorry, that's the actual title of it too. It's 4 years after the regular.
I think they're
Civil
still
Rights Act.
technically not allowed on Boston Common. So
Jesus. Yeah, it was an interesting little tangent. Sorry, but it's just interesting.
yeah, for sure, to get into all the conspiracy theories. So that pulled out of us saying, this is why we're doing it for New Year's Eve.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
But it's
important.
also wintry. It's very cold.
Yeah, well, if you're going to do, it's a winter movie where people are stuck together as we're in the middle of the winter and a pandemic where restrictions are tightening.
Yeah.
It's either The Shining or The Thing. And I already said I want to do The Thing next October. So
All right.
someone breathe really hard, like they were about to make a point. Okay.
Probably me. I don't know where I was going to go, though.
Yeah, you were like,
I don't know where we want to go next.
Greg's like, all right, let's wrap this thing up.
I have plenty of places to go next. I think on the recording, we're probably only right around an hour. It's an hour 30, but we talked about a lot. We didn't actually get into it until about 15 minutes in. And then I think we've, probably about 15 other things we can get out of there.
It's probably more relevant in the book, maybe. But I got a good laugh in the beginning in the interview when they're like, we got to tell you, the last guy murdered his whole family here. It like upsets a lot of people. So I wanted to tell you. And I was like, wait, but why? It's not like this is like the internet age. If you didn't tell him, he just wouldn't have known.
And then Jack's like, that's a feature, not a bug. Do you
Do
My
you have to
wife's
do the
gonna love
murdering
that.
yourself? Or
Like that, I was like, yeah, he never would have known if you didn't say anything. This turns a lot of people off when I tell them this. Don't even know why I keep doing it.
damn it, you lost another applicant. Stop telling him about the
Closing
murder.
day in like a week, bro. You got to stop telling people that.
That's what he wasn't gonna find out if you didn't tell him. Like, right? Who would have told him? He's about to be alone in this place for months.
Yeah, he's not going to get access to an old newspaper. He's not going to go to the library and look through the microfiche. Like, anyway.
It does seem like it has to. There's like a theme, and I think Cabin in the Woods highlights this like over the head. But like, there always has to be a way for the character to escape it. It does kind of bleed through. So like, that was they always have to have the stupid warning they ignore anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. And he specifically says, and he murdered his whole family with an axe. And Jack goes, well, that won't be a problem for me. And you're like, yeah, it will. I bet it will.
You're already looking crazy.
I don't even like axes. I'd use a machete.
So right in that scene where Ullman stands up and he shakes his hand, the color of his jacket and the sort of like files, like it was like an inbox outbox thing he has on his desk, they're kind of the same color. So if you're looking for a homoerotic reading, right when they shake hands, it looks like Ullman has a massive erection. That's also from Room 237.
Ooh,
We gotta watch it now.
And so just because I watched that documentary a while ago, unfortunately, it's not on a streaming service. Like you can rent it or whatever for a few bucks, but it's not on a streaming service. Or I would have watched it today before we did this. But that's one of the things they're like, yeah, I guess it kind of looks like a large penis. This is one of the theories, so we have to tell you about it.
So I thought Room 237, wasn't that a Jim Carrey horror movie? Is this a documentary?
Number 23?
Yes, I am. Yeah, that's a completely different.
Yes, Room 237 is a documentary specifically just about the conspiracy theories of The Shining.
Okay.
So again, 237 makes 12. In the book, it's Room 217.
Yes.
So what's the change for?
I actually looked it up because I was like, that's really weird. Like, it's really weird change. So it's actually because they shot the movie at a hotel in Oregon, I think.
Okay.
And the hotel asked them to change the number because they had a room 217, but they did not have a room 237. And they didn't want future guests to not want to stay in that room because of the movie.
That was a stupid call because future guests would absolutely pay thousands of dollars extra to stay into that room.
Stephen King was really upset because he requested that they film it at the hotel that he based it off of. Which is in Colorado, and they didn't film it there.
Yeah, Stanley?
The Stanley Hotel. And the Stanley Hotel has people coming there all the time asking to stay in room 217, and they say that they have the name, the number plate stolen like on a weekly basis.
Yeah, there you go. You just price it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just, if you stay there, you get to take the number plate.
Yeah.
Price it right in.
Oh, and the other thing I thought was interesting too. So he said that, obviously he wrote this about himself again. And I'm like, he couldn't have wrote this about himself. It's a terrible character. And he's like, yeah, I was in a bad place at that time. So I guess he was dealing with alcoholism, and he said he was dealing with like uncontrolled rage towards his family. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And he said that he was staying at this hotel and he had a nightmare about the fire hose chasing his son around the hotel, which is actually a part of the book.
Yeah,
and
it's like a big hose with googly eyes. It's like, I'm gonna get you down here. And you're like, okay. And then he's like, why didn't he put that in the movie?
And I just kept thinking, like, imagine like his wife goes to read this book after. He's like, yeah, I wrote this because I was going through a hard time. And you're like, this is supposed to be you? Like, should I be concerned?
Our prenup says no.
Yeah. Is that worse than like being super high on painkillers and writing Dreamcatcher?
I don't know.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, I was super high on painkillers. Kept pooping big killer slugs. I don't know.
What?
It's about me. So that was a thing that happened to me. Dreamcatcher is not a good film.
So
My
speaking of
understanding
the
is
fire
it's not a
hoses.
great film. Yeah, where we got that part. So there's a part of every episode where I list a bunch of facts about something that no one else cares about. So do you guys want to hear some facts about the invention of the Steadicam?
Can we talk about the fire hoses first?
Yeah. Are there fire hoses in the movie?
No, there's not. And we also, because one of the things Ray noticed right away was they chose not to do the topiaries either.
Yeah.
And immediately, as soon as you noticed that, you were like, I bet you they couldn't do it. Like, it probably would have been way too hard.
It would have looked terrible.
It would have looked terrible. And I really like that they didn't seem to do anything that wasn't going to look good, because this movie still looks good.
Yeah,
Like,
I
even
was
the-
really pumped that was actually the reason that they didn't do it. I was like, I bet they didn't do it because it would be too difficult to make it look good. And that's exactly why they didn't.
As soon as you said fire hoses chasing him around, I was picturing that in my head, and like, hilarious. It's just, you could not do it and make it a serious part of the movie.
Mhm.
It would just be immediately hilarious. It would look so
Everything they chose to do, they did really well. Because this movie, when did it come on? That 80, you said?
1980.
1980. It took a few years to
All their
make,
effects are
but-
practical and they still look nice.
Mm.
Even like the lady in the tub that's all kind of like melting and stuff. She still looks gross.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not like you look at it and you're like, oh, I see that, it's so fake looking. Still looks real nice.
It was funny because at the end it's credited with young lady in the tub, and like as I read it, I like had like a thought. I was like, oh, and then it was old lady in the tub. Oh, it was very like they're right next to each other, and like my reaction to both of them was very visceral. It was just a very funny like thing to read through.
Also
Oh, that
interesting-
reminds me. The other thing I forgot to mention was like with the book to movie adaptation, they made a lot of very, very smart choices because
Yeah.
they combined, like, obviously one of the problems that people have when they're making movies out of books is they don't have enough time to tell you the whole story, right?
Yep.
So they combined a lot of elements from the book together into one scene to like get the point across. So like the old lady in the tub, for example, she was never a young lady in the book. Like it wasn't like she came in there and like he went in there and she seduced him and then it turned into an old lady. That didn't happen.
Okay.
But there was like a young lady that was a spirit like later on that he was flirting with. So instead they made that one scene and they like managed to hit both of those points.
So the old lady in the tub thing happened separately from the.
Making out with a
young
ghost.
lady that was actually a ghost that was seducing him.
So I am curious as a first-time viewer, but this is obviously a very famous scene. So first off, curious if you knew what was going on here, the forces at play, and just generally your reaction when the room 237 scene, where you're in first person going into the room, which I was kind of blew my mind. I was like, well, first person didn't really exist yet, but you're in first person. You actually see Jack's hand push the door open and crap. And then you go in, you're looking at the bathroom. You can kind of make out a figure behind the curtain. It pulls back.
Yeah. So just to clarify, there's only 3 scenes from this movie that I had seen beforehand, and it's
Oh, cool.
blood elevators, it's bathroom door, and it's frozen corpse in the snow.
Okay.
So this
So you're
was.
So this was weird.
Yeah.
Reactions.
What the
Not to
fuck?
put you on the spot,
I think
but-
I literally just wrote what the fuck a bunch of times.
So
Your notes are playing. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Oh no.
What's all it's written?
That's the whole thing. It just says what the fuck.
So you start kind of confused, but
It was very okay. So yeah, I see where you're getting at. It was interesting to see because I guess my first thought was like, okay, there's the woman that choked his son is hot. Okay, that seems to have an.
He wants to get choked.
Like apparently that it factors into his opinion as well because like it was weird that like he was immediately drawn to her. I think it makes more sense if you think of it as him like flirting with the hotel more than like a random stranger. But so that and just to have it switch to like the rotting woman, I guess I kept trying to tie it into like who the fuck is this? Because the wife and the kids were who were murdered in the hotel. So where'd the dead rotting woman come from? But I didn't have a lot of time to process because then it's into something else like
Yeah.
15 seconds later.
then Jack goes back and she's like, and Wendy asks him what was there, and he's like, I don't want to talk about it. Nothing
Not even,
there.
he's like, nothing. There's nothing there. Kid's crazy. It's a little crazy kid. And I'm just like, sure. Yep. That's what we're doing. We're just rolling with this. It kept moving and I didn't have time to stop and like.
It really does keep moving.
does,
I mean,
yeah.
for a 2 hour, 20-ish, 23-minute long movie.
When you said it was that long, I didn't believe you. I was
no, it
would've-
rocks, man. It just,
would have guessed 2 hours max on this and I had watched it like the night before.
Yeah.
and it's often pinged for being slow and ponderous, and it's
Only
just, it's
slow
a
part,
wavelength.
Opening credits. That's my only complaint of slow.
Yeah, it's a whole wavelength that you're on, man.
Credits, it's like it was cool watching it, and there's like a good like music, like a score behind it and stuff.
You did make the comment though. You were like, I think they just named every single person that's in the movie.
They did because in the opening credits, usually you just like it's like this Jack Nicholson and like the big people, and they had like 10 names up. I was like, I think that's every
There's only, like,
character.
Yeah, it's
people.
mostly 3.5 characters in this movie.
Yeah.
And there was like 10 names in the opening credits. I was like, that's got to be everyone. That's got to be every single character right there.
Scatman Crothers is like fourth build, and
I know we're a little away already, but that scene with the bathtub lady too, I thought was interesting because that's like the only time in the movie I think that Jack's scared. Because he like runs away from that room. Like
after his nightmare too.
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
you're right.
He's
You're right.
terrified
That's
after the
another.
nightmare.
Because I was gonna say because he's real good. His performance is great through the whole movie. But that's one of the one of two times that his performance is different. Because every other time it's his crazy, he's got these crazy like eye movements and his, the way his facial expressions he does for his like crazy Jack Nicholson thing. But those two scenes, he's like terrified instead. And he really sells it that he's like.
Yeah. There's, and Ray can speak to this better, but there are a lot of important points in the movie, even after he starts running around. In the book, even after he starts running around with the Roque mallet, where he does have like moments of lucidity.
Mhm.
I was going to say it felt like you were seeing parts where he was almost. My theory was he's being possessed by the hotel when
Pretty
he
much.
is doing crazy stuff,
Yeah.
and like you kind of see like where it's him versus where it's the hotel. But my other thought was like, and I wasn't sure if it was the person before him or if there had been other people in between that hadn't murdered their families. But it seemed like the hotel can only like work on you so much. You already have to be a certain type of person for it to fuck with you like that.
Yes.
Mhm.
You have to have some weakness to exploit.
Yeah.
Alcoholism.
Mhm.
So you guys want to hear some fun facts about the invention of the Steadicam?
Now I'm ready.
Yes.
The Steadicam is patented by Garrett Brown in the mid-70s. He sends around this almost like a mixtape called 30 Impossible Shots, and it sort of circulates around Hollywood. And the catch is him and his buddies film these shots that are impossible. No one knows how to do them. And he doesn't say how he's doing them because the patent hasn't been approved yet or whatever, and he doesn't want people to figure it out. Eventually it gets into Stanley Kubrick's hands. I think it was like a producer friend sees this, sends it to Kubrick. Kubrick writes a letter to Garrett Brown, who at this point, like, he's not, a famous person. He's just a guy trying to like be like, here's a cool thing I invented.
Have
It's the
exactly
70s.
what just happened.
Right, yeah. It's the 70s. We've got like, the new Hollywood shit. The whole industry's changing. You got all these auteurs coming up. He gets a letter from fucking Stanley Kubrick. It's a telex from him. And it basically says, I'm really impressed with this. This is going to revolutionize Hollywood. If you want to protect it, there's 14 frames that I could see a shadow of what looks like a guy, and he describes exactly what the thing is. He's like, so you might want to cut those frames out if you want to protect it before the patent comes through. And like, P.S., what's the minimum height you can shoot at with this? So, and that like gets the gears turning. And so this is like in the mid 70s, but Kubrick's already planning. He already has the galleys pretty much planned for the shots where you're following the tricycle in his head, obviously.
It's so good that when you're following the
Yeah.
tricycle.
So Garrett Brown gets in touch with him, and Kubrick tells him what he's trying to do. Garrett Brown figures out a way. So the way that a Steadicam works, if you don't know, it's basically you're wearing this rig that kind of goes around your body almost.
Oh, I've seen this.
And you have like you're sort of like holding a bowl, and you got the camera, and he doesn't actually have all the kinks worked out yet, working directly on The Shining, because Garrett Brown gets so excited by the project that Kubrick actually hires him to be the camera op, the guy who invented the fucking Steadicam. And he invents this way, so it's on top of the rig, but he makes it basically upside down so they can film those sequences an inch off the floor, which is just not something you could do before. So it's this insane sort of like innovative thing that I can't imagine. Seeing this movie at the time, I think there was only maybe 6 movies before this that even use a Steadicam. But then to have the guy who invented it innovating several times over on top of that, and then you have these shots of just like this disembodied camera following Danny, following people as they're walking around, so often that there's a character moving through a space that even if the camera's not behind them, it's sort of keeping pace with them. The whole point of a Steadicam is you have the freedom of a handheld camera without the shakiness. It's still smooth like a mounted camera on a dolly would be.
Because it's mounted to you. That's
Yes,
like
it's
the
mounted
it's like
to
the big
So
belt kind
This
of
was
thing.
super innovative at the time, which is probably why critics saw this and were like, wow, this is
I think people just need to
terrible.
process it. I think there's, at least for some people, not everyone is going to have the same issues, but I think for a lot of people, it's just like, can't get their mind around what's happening.
for those
It took
tricycle
10 years
scenes,
for them to like really think about it.
Yeah,
Like,
I think the just
you only had
just the
40 minutes,
camera-
Robbie. They needed 10 years.
Yeah, just the camera itself is so menacing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I love those tricycle scenes. I feel like they
Yep.
keep you're just far enough behind Danny
Mm-hmm.
that when he like makes corners, you like have just enough time to think
Yeah.
like, oh my god, what is around this corner?
So we're talking about ways that Kubrick's consolidating story points, but those are just tension building shots. They're virtuosic innovation, and it's also giving you an idea of the layout of the Overlook and where everything is early in the movie. So later on, when people are being chased through the hotel, you know where they're going, or you don't, because the third time he's on the tricycle, there's like a quick cut and he's on a different floor all of a sudden, and he like takes a left and a right, and then ends up in a spot that you didn't think he was going to end up in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working on so many levels. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just
No,
really
no,
cool.
that's fine. Honestly, she had mentioned something about the way they try to confuse you in the hotel, and I was
Yeah.
like, you don't even need to. I'm fucking lost anyway.
Yeah,
But-
like I had no map in mind.
Nope.
I didn't even know which floor was which floor.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to. They like purposely did that
Yes.
so that you couldn't tell where you were. They would like purposely change things. They'd move fixtures to places that they weren't before, so that it wasn't like
Oh.
it didn't make sense of how they had gotten in the rooms.
Yeah,
where they were
there's
supposed to
there's like
be.
windows on walls that you thought were interior walls.
Yeah, in the
There's
Ullman's
staircases on
office,
different floors.
There's a
that
window there, but you see Jack like walking like into it's an interior office.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But even
Super cool.
on those tricycle scenes with their crazy innovative camera, I honestly think the best part of it is the sound the tricycle makes. They very
Yes, it's
strategically
great.
place carpets.
Yeah.
from the carpet to the hardwood.
The-
where
the
it's
And
like,
every-
bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
bum.
Every time it's louder, you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there's like a shitload of carpets, very strategically like placed so that you get this sound from that
Yeah.
tricycle going over carpet and hardwood, and it's like,
Yeah. So to bring it back to Robbie, this wasn't one of the 3 scenes you listed. These various tricycle trysts. But
Okay.
this is such like an iconic shot. So what was your experience with that?
I've seen it parodied a shit ton.
Yeah.
That I probably should have mentioned that one.
I always feel
definitely
like I think the intro to Bobby's World, that cartoon from back in the day.
I don't know if it was Bobby's World.
It's
I
a
know
kid on a
there's
tricycle. I don't know.
there was definitely a Family Guy one with Stewie doing it.
Oh yeah.
But I've definitely seen it in a couple other things. But no, it was really cool. I think I just wrote it was iconic. I liked it. I couldn't really put my finger on why I like it so much. Maybe just the suspension building. But
Yeah.
I wasn't ever actually worried about him being in trouble on the tricycle for some reason. I don't know why. Like I never thought he was gonna turn the corner and run into something bad. It was always
Uh-oh.
just a like
So did you freak out when he turned the corner and ran into something bad?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, the two
The
girls.
two
Yeah,
girls.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and he
Which
keep-
the girls actually aren't in the book either. Which
Oh,
and like
interesting.
that's one of the most iconic ghosts in this whole thing.
Mm.
yeah,
And
because
just in pop culture, maybe
Yeah.
like the most iconic.
Yeah, and that's
Just
not
ghosts.
that's not part of the book either. So yeah.
Because when he turns the corner and sees them, that's when they alternate between he sees the two girls and he sees them all like mangled and
Yes.
Yeah,
axe
yep.
ridden. Yeah.
Mhm.
All axe ridden.
Yeah.
They've got axes all over them.
Full axes.
Lousy.
Like, get
with
these
them.
axes off me. Come on.
Come on.
I was trying to do my thing over here.
Axe for this.
I always think it's interesting. This detail I always pick up on that immediately forget that they do say that they're not twins.
Yes.
They say they're different ages. So
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. One of them is a little taller, I think.
it seems like,
Barely.
it,
You
but I
can
don't know if it's just
tell-
me telling myself that or
I look at them and I'm like, no, they aren't twins, huh? Because
Yeah.
they're a little different. It's the outfits, though. That's what gets you.
And because they
Yes.
move exactly the same, so everyone's just they assume they're twins.
and I always forget how early they hit you with those two. It's like
Yeah,
the
right
first-
away.
within a
Yeah.
couple minutes of Danny getting there, he sees them in the
Yeah.
playroom.
Mm-hmm.
While we're talking about like the sound from the bicycle, the other sound they do a lot that I like a lot is Jack typing on his keys.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but like hearing the typewriter like
Yeah.
keys, because a lot of times it'll be when the camera's kind of like slowly bringing you into that giant room he's working in, and all you
so
hear is like,
loud.
and yeah, they're wicked loud and like click clacking. I don't know what it is about them, but I really
Yeah.
like them.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's this movie swears more than I do.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
notice all the F bombs that Jack drops. I'm like, they earned whatever. I'm assuming they were an R-rated movie, but
Yeah.
they earned it.
I imagine there was the elevator of blood.
While we're talking about the sounds too,
Yeah.
when does the heartbeat start? Because it's like
Hour 10?
an hour and 10, and it's just there after
Yep.
for most of the movie.
It
Did
goes
you
away
hear
and then
that?
it comes
Did you notice it?
back, and
It's like part of the score is a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like the background music, there's a heart beating the whole time.
It's tough because I one of the comments I was going to make is there's definitely a number of points in the movie where the score in the background wasn't music. Most of it was never
it's just
music.
kinda,
it's just plucking
ominous.
on
Yeah.
violins.
The
and
plucking,
shit.
yep.
Yeah.
And just random shit. And like there'd be probably like 15-minute stretches where I had been obviously processing it, but not realizing it was there until they did one of those like cuts or a transition or something and it was suddenly gone. And I was like, oh my God, I've been listening to that like nonsense music for 15 minutes now. Like it starts to drive you a little crazy. It's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, their score is wicked good.
The score's amazing. I'm usually pretty bad at recognizing a score and the effect it's having on the movie. Not the case with The Shining. I think
It
you
would be
always
I want to watch
Always
this movie
appreciate
now
it.
with like the sound turned off. Is it the same movie?
maybe I don't know. There are
Jack does all his acting with his eyeballs, so probably.
Yeah.
the scene with him and the like Jack and Danny, I don't think would have been as scary without the score.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Mhm.
I think there's a few times where where silence is used pretty strategically too. So you had talked before just while we're getting into the sound, there's a different YouTube video that I was watching on my 4K Blu-ray player, so it's just like a little bit. That's why I want to go back on HBO Max so I can actually just like scrub the timeline with a mouse. But I was watching a video that they say that there's I think 16 different instances where you can hear a chorus of people saying the word "shown" in the background.
Guess that's
There-
what happens after The Shining.
Yeah, you done shown.
He's not
And-
showing.
And it's usually there's a question asked, and then someone responds with like a mental function, like, oh, I think that, whatever. And then people go, shown, or something like that. So like, what the fuck? I've never noticed that before. So I want to go back on HBO Max and see if that's actually there. And then there's, talking as Wendy's going up the stairs kind of towards the end.
Yes,
Um,
the weird chanting. And stuff.
Yeah, and there's other times where you hear like actual chanting. Were you able to figure out what any of that is?
They said it's not English. It's like part
Okay.
of the score. It's in I don't
Yeah, I know they're doing the DSE Ray sometimes.
Yeah.
DSE Ray,
know. Yeah.
But
A couple things I liked. I really like the scene where she drags him into the pantry, and he like wakes up in the pantry, and he's
Yeah.
like yelling at her to
what are
let
you
him
doing?
out.
Yeah.
And the whole time we have this.
real bad.
Yeah, and then when he fakes being injured
I
and
think
stuff.
I need to see a doctor.
Their acting is awesome, and then when he realizes she's not going to believe it, he's like, "Go check the snow cat.
Yeah,
Go check it out.
check it out.
Yeah, but the whole time this is going on, we're being shown him from like underneath him. Remember,
Yes.
because he's like pressing against the door, and the camera's under him.
Yeah.
That's a Steadicam.
Well,
I was gonna say it's real cool.
he's,
right
he's
into the corners.
fiddling with that handle too the whole time.
The whole-
You almost feel like he's gonna like push it through the door.
Like he's gonna
somehow.
get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, yeah, they got you real nervous that she's fucked right now, that he's gonna find a way out of this thing, or the door's just gonna open or something.
Something.
I think it's that camera angle too is what really gets you, because like
Yeah.
if you were like over
So-
his shoulder, it wouldn't do the same.
So same idea. That's a wide angle lens. You can like make out the labels on the boxes behind him in the background of the shot, and it's just like his nostrils are flared, and he's not, he's whatever age he is in this, but it's not like wrinkles. It's just the grooves in his face are so defined and exaggerated from this angle. He just like looks fully evil at this point. It's such a cool way.
Hmm. I also like when Wendy runs out to the snowcat like right after this, and she like gets the. I not that I'm a
thing.
car person, the
Yeah.
thing, and she's like holding it, and she clearly has no idea what it is, but she knows it belongs in the car.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's called a distributor cap, and I think those were 4 spark plugs. And the engine definitely needs those to start.
She's like, oh no, this
Like, this is important.
This is
clearly
important. and
Yeah.
It's in my hand. I believe it belongs in the engine. I also like classically that every axe murderer has a limp,
Yeah, it's
which makes
classic.
sense. He did just roll down like a lot of stairs, like a
Yes.
really lot of stairs.
I
Oh,
noticed.
yeah.
So you missed it. I was because you were making a note when it happened. But yeah, when he woke up in the closet or the pantry, he like checked his ankle because he had hurt himself falling down the stairs.
Yeah, I didn't.
So
even
that's why he had the limp. And I looked
Oh,
over, and you were not looking at the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna say something about the limp later.
Well, I didn't. Even,
There's a few times where he's like really rubbing his.
You didn't even need to show me though. I just watched him roll down like a grand staircase. So I was like, yeah, that's all I need to know why you're limping.
I know they did make a point to say that he had hurt his leg though.
Just because we kind of went back to that scene, do you want to know what the typewriter alts are? In different languages, they didn't want to just have all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. They tried to look for a equivalent idiom in that language, so they wouldn't have to like subtitle the text.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to hear what those are?
Hell yeah.
Yes.
So Kubrick, like I said, shot different takes of Wendy reading the typewriter pages in different languages. In German, it was. Do you want me to do the German or just tell you what it says?
What it says.
Yeah, my German is pretty rusty.
All right, I thought you might think it's fun, but whatever. In German, it says, "Never put off till tomorrow what may be done today."
That's kind of ominous.
Yeah.
That is not what I want to read as Wendy at this point
No.
in the movie.
Oh, he's gonna kill me
And,
today.
And of course, these are idioms, so they probably have like a slightly different meaning than literal. But since we don't speak these languages, so grain of salt. That being said, for instance, the Italian is "the morning has gold in its mouth."
Oh,
No.
they're into
Oh,
pizza.
no.
I know. So in Bocca al Lupo is about having good luck, but literally in the mouth of the wolf, right? So I'm assuming it's something about luck. The morning has gold in its mouth.
Okay.
French, one, here you go, is worth more than two, you'll have it.
All right.
The equivalent of a bird in the hand is
Yeah.
worth in the bush.
Yep.
Spanish, no matter how early you get up, you can't make the sun rise any sooner.
Okay.
So those are the different language alts of the typewriter scene.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
It is kind of fun.
This is fun.
I think
I
only
like the
this.
German one a lot.
I do too.
I wonder if it's as iconic because that's like you were saying, something that's not from the book, but is very like.
You think every German sitcom has a "don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today" joke?
Yeah, that's what I'm like. It can't be as iconic, right?
Just like every American sitcom has an all work and no play joke.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to key in on. Okay, it's not one thing. I'm lying. There's multiple things I want to key in on.
One of the 15 things that I like.
Among the 50 or so things that I like, I want to key in on. The use of color in this movie is always blows my mind. Everything is such a rich color, and with the wide angles, you get a huge view of the rooms with the characters usually in the dead center, feeling kind of closed in, but also in these massive spaces. Always standing out to me by design is the bathroom scene in the bathroom that may or may not exist off of the gold room. That's in a completely different style than the rest of the building, where the walls are just a deep, deep red.
Mhm.
He's in a red room. He's in a red room. Danny's saying red rum. Red color of blood. I don't know if you guys know this.
Wow.
Actually, according to color theory, it's a very comforting color. No, do you know what I'm? There's a
And,
big Tumblr joke about that. Sorry.
That's funny. The room's very red, and that's the room he decides to murder his family in. I love this scene so much with Delbert Grady, not Charles Grady as he was told earlier. I always think of the phrasing of, he's a very willful boy.
Yeah.
Sometimes when my dog's like misbehaving, I'm like, he's a very willful boy.
Jesus.
It is a
Very
really good
willful
scene when he's
boy.
having that conversation with
If you don't mind
Grady.
me saying, a very naughty boy.
Yeah. No. I had to correct them.
Yeah, the way he just kind of trills a little bit on the correct.
Yeah.
I had to correct them.
The impressive part about that bathroom too is that's from it looks like that bathroom is from 2010. You know, like
right.
he,
it's a completely different style than
They said the gold room was updated recently.
well, I just mean like if to film that in the 80s and get modern.
Yeah.
They basically predicted modern architecture. Like I've seen that bathroom, but nobody has seen it
in the 80s.
in the 80s through
Yep.
the 2000s even.
And it's I also like the scene with the old lady in the tub when they go into that room, and it's probably the wide angle lenses, honestly, but the room feels really big. So I'm always like, oh, this would have been probably like a nice room. The bathroom feels really big, but it's like 70s nice. The color scheme's really weird. Like the sinks are this like green color.
I wanted to hit on this next. Actually, I saw a thread on Twitter recently that was talking about the color of the kind of like seafoamish green is the color of medical scrubs. And you go into the room and there's sort of like a metal bar around the outside.
Mm-hmm.
The sinks look a lot more industrial than other sinks. They're still sinks, but they have like metal poles holding them up and stuff.
The metal legs, I know.
And I don't know, it's kind of hospital-y, morgue-y kind of. The reason that medical scrubs are the color they are, according to random Twitter poster, I can't remember. I'm not a doctor. Sorry if this isn't actually true.
Doctor.
But it makes a lot of sense. The reason that they're like a blue or kind of a greenish blue is because blood stands out on it.
Ah.
And that's the same color that they use in that bathroom.
It's interesting.
The use of color in this movie is amazing. Obviously, the gold room, you go in there, Wendy says, gold and pink are my favorite colors. And you're like, all right, Wendy.
Yeah. Calm down.
Calm down, Wendy. That like awful wallpapered yellow hallway where Danny sees the twins. Not twins, I know.
Yep.
I have a little fun fact. So the rug, the one that he's riding around on the Tricon. Yeah.
Is it going to be about the Mitchells versus the Machines?
No.
Okay.
But
We have two fun facts about the rug.
Yeah. Well, it's a very iconic rug, I guess. People really like it. But it's they use that rug for Sid's house in Toy Story, the first Toy Story.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's in the hallway.
Yep. So Katie and Mitchell's versus the Machine, her socks are the same pattern.
Oh,
That's why.
okay.
So we hit a lot of things that we really liked in this movie. Robbie, since this was your first time watching it, was there anything that just did not work for you in this movie?
Yeah, that's a good question.
There's one thing in particular that I did not like that I wanted to get into. So,
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I think the only thing in this movie that really did not work for me at all, like I said, didn't love her performance of her running, but the scene transition in the end to Jack being frozen is like comical almost. I think it's because his eyes are open.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is.
It's tough to separate it from it being like a pretty prevalent meme today.
Yeah.
Also,
That could be it too. I think it just, I don't know if they didn't do it well or that's just not. I'm like, he shouldn't look like this. I feel like
no, he froze to death. I don't know.
he did freeze to death. I don't know. It's just so abrupt too. It is very abrupt.
It is. It's very
He just frozen and it's kind of silly looking. I think. I don't know. That's the only scene that like doesn't really work for me in this movie.
Okay.
I can understand that. I think what doesn't work about it is just like, I don't know if they had the tech to do a good somebody frozen to death that still felt scary. I think they maybe even should have just done like him face down in the snow.
I was gonna say him face down, like covered in the snow, and like
maybe like the axe still.
I don't know. That's the only part I think of the movie, really. That one of the only scenes where I'm like,
Or it would have been even scarier just to not have shown his body, just footsteps leading off into the woods, and then just like leave it. But
I get it. They wanted to let you know he froze to death. They mentioned in the beginning of the movie too, the Donner Party, like freezing up there too. So,
well, the whole thing is he gets trapped in the maze.
yeah,
You gotta know he gets trapped in the maze.
yeah.
He's the Minotaur now. So yeah, one of the fun things that I hadn't considered before, but it was just like I'm looking up like other stuff, other theories. The moon landing thing. He's wearing the Apollo 11 shirt when he goes into room 237.
Oh, by the
Yeah.
way, those sweaters on point.
Who made them?
Who-
like somebody
Where are they getting
specifically
those?
knitted them for
Good
this
sweater.
movie.
Yeah, the
It's
costume
wherever
design
Noel
people.
Fielding gets his clothes.
I assume
Yeah.
you're supposed to think that Wendy
Some
knitted
thrift
it.
store in London.
That's what I assume, but like I love that he has a couple.
There's
too.
that's got you that I'm sure like for $80 you could have that sweater from like some novelty
don't-
sweaters.
They get progressively
Online
worse, and it
storefront.
just crescendos with the Apollo 11 sweater.
Yeah,
Like by the time you get there, they're like, okay, no.
Yeah,
this
and
is
once you're
great.
introducing like pictures and text onto your sweater, you've lost the plot. So yeah, part of the room 237 thing is the pattern that he's on, kind of like a maze, but also the part where the ball like it makes contact with his trucks it's sort of like an arrow pointing down, which means the rocket didn't happen or something. So Kubrick faked the moon landing. It's something like that. It's been a while since I watched Room
Beautiful.
237. But.
They also said there's like 237,000 miles from here to the moon,
Yeah, there's exactly...
and that's why they changed the number.
There's exactly 237 lines of dialogue. No, there's exactly 237 questions posed in the film. You know, stuff
some
like
people
that.
think it's like a subtle confession by Stanley Kubrick that he faked the moon
Like,
landing.
he was the director that like shot.
I
the-
personally don't think it's
yeah.
subtle. I think it's pretty obvious that this is a confession that he faked the moon landing.
I just think it's cute. You still believe in the moon.
One thing that always threw me off in this movie is, well, there's a lot of things, but when Wendy and Danny are walking around the hedge maze like for fun, and he's looking at the model of it,
Yeah.
and then they the camera pans over the top so that you think you're over the model and you can see them moving in it, and then it pans down and you're just in the maze. And I always for a split second think he can see them.
I think he can.
And yeah, I don't know if he can.
Yeah, you're supposed to wonder. It's him at that point, lording over them, this massive presence, looking down on them, playing with them like they're toys. By the end, he's tricked in that same maze, and he's being dwarfed by the hedges. Or that's not, or that's just in,
I
your
took
head.
it as he was tapped into the hotel, and the hotel is aware of where the people are. all the time.
That's kind of it's like the hotel showing him something.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
here's
yeah.
where they are.
It's good shit, and that's right when he's doing the Kubrick stare when he comes in. They're outside, and it pushes in on him, and he's doing
No.
it's the Kubrick stare. He's looking out the top of his eyes, and his face is kind of tipped down.
Yeah.
It's in every Kubrick movie, someone's staring at the camera like that. So how do you think they filmed that shot in the late 70s?
Oh, of coming down on them.
Yeah,
It wasn't a drone.
no,
It's
it wasn't
funny
a
'cause
drone.
Well, he faked the moon landing, so he's got to have some kind
That's
of
true.
equipment, right?
It's funny because I
That was
didn't
a
even think
rocket.
about that, but like I said, I did think about the opening scene. I was like, how did they film this? Because this is a very clear drone scene, and that one's also very clear. This would be a drone now scene, and I didn't even think about it. It didn't even cross my mind that it would have been really hard to film.
Imagine they just hung another asshole out of a helicopter.
They dropped the camera
Not
straight
a
from
helicopter
space.
this time, yeah, because they didn't actually build a massive maze that's infinite in every direction like it looks in that shot. They just built certain sections for the filming.
Hot air balloon?
No. So it's sort of like a composite thing. Shelley Duvall and Danny Lloyd are walking in a parking lot, and the camera's someone leaning out a window filming straight down on them from the top of an apartment building. And then they composite that with the sort of just super symmetrical maze that goes forever in every direction. Or they don't. I don't know. Weird to get a straight answer on the internet about that particular thing, but that's what I found.
That makes more
checks out
sense
to the
than
moon theory. Then
Yeah, it makes more sense than my idea of dropping the camera out of a helicopter or plane with a little parachute and hoping that it's not windy that day.
some balloons.
That would work though.
If you drop enough of them, you're gonna get it.
Yeah. Cameras aren't expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
play the numbers game.
One of the things that I did pick up on this time a little bit, just because I was reading some analysis that I hadn't before, was the sort of perversions and subversions of different parts of American nuclear family iconography that the movie is maybe arguing for the disintegration of American nuclear families through the kind of idyllic idea of a father gathering firewood for his family by chopping down trees. Instead, you get him with the axe chopping down doors, trying to murder his family. Wendy as the mother with the kitchen knife, but instead of preparing food, she's defending herself from murder.
Interesting.
Different stuff like that. So a lot of grotesque visions of fatherhood and motherhood, and
The kid that has a direction of the future the parents aren't aware of.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just all this different stuff. She traps him in the kitchen, and men aren't supposed to be in the kitchen.
Mm.
Yeah, he has
Fun
to
stuff like that.
eat Oreos because he can't prepare a meal.
Yeah, he traps her in the bathroom, which is where women get ready.
Mm.
That was, again, this isn't my theory. This is just one of the fun theories that I hadn't seen before that I was looking at.
That is interesting.
But I thought it was pretty intriguing to view through that kind of lens that it's not like a random thing. A lot of people feel like it's about the disintegration of the American nuclear family in the late 20th century. But, I thought that was interesting.
Well, it was interesting too when she was like trying to figure out how to leave and like, we'll just go without him if he doesn't want to go. And like, I know it was right around at that time in history, but I don't think a woman could even have her own bank account until like the late 70s, early 80s. So it was just, I was thinking like even before, like even if she wasn't trapped in a hotel, how does packing up your kid and leave your child look when you can't have a bank account or anything like that? So I don't know. Interesting.
There were definitely a lot of things that I was like, ooh, what is like happening in this time in history? Especially too, because she like straight up tells that doctor that like, yeah, my husband like ripped his arm out, but like obvious he was drinking at the time, and husbands do that.
Like all of your patients' parents, of course.
Like that just is a thing that husbands do when they drink. And the doctor's like, yeah, yeah. And then like her smoking at breakfast.
She offers the doctor a cigarette.
Yeah.
She's not like, oh, you shouldn't smoke. She's just like, oh, no, thank you. I'll have one later.
I also really like when they're driving up to the overlook down the Sidewinder. Danny is like basically in the front seat with them. Like he's leaning over. I'm like, this kid clearly has no seatbelt on.
Let's talk about cannibalism.
Well, yeah, let's talk about cannibalism. When she sends him outside to play in the freezing blizzard, no jacket.
Wait.
Pushed him out a window to get out there.
A window. They could have done a little better. That was the one part that bothered me. The entire time she was struggling to get through the window, she was like, the parts that get stuck were already through the window.
I
same exact
I was like,
thing.
all the parts where like your main width of bones is through the window. It's like, I guess maybe your hips is gonna be the next part. But then I did think like, if your rib cage comes out a bit, like maybe you just not the boobs because you're trying to squish, but like you do have, it does come out a bit more than like, you know what I mean? You kind of come. So I was like, oh, maybe that's what's stuck.
When she pulled herself out of the window, you could see how small that window opening is.
It
And it's
was
like, there's
really
no
tiny.
It was
way.
very small, but
But he said the same thing.
I could have fit through that window.
Well, it made me think of like her trying to put him in the pantry, and she like couldn't even open the thing because she was so scared. I mean, she could barely fit herself out the window because she couldn't open it.
I always that scene's so terrifying, obviously, but I always think it looks pretty fun sliding down that big snowdrift.
Yeah, I love the big snowdrift.
When she was calling to him to tell him to run away, for a split second, I thought she was calling to him to have him help pull her through, and I was like,
Not get back up there.
no,
Climb back up.
absolutely not. But
It's only a 25-foot tall snow slope. Climb back up, Danny.
it made a lot more sense. She was like, Danny. I was like, wait, what is she doing? Run away. Okay, yeah, do that.
I like, that was something else, man. I
That
always think
scene
like,
is just great.
once it's obvious that Jack's gone away, she doesn't make any attempt to like give Halloran a heads up. Like she hears someone's come in a snowcat, but she's obviously terrified while Jack's still trying to get through the door. But then he leaves to go investigate, and there's probably an overlap where she would be free to stick her head out the window, see who it is, and maybe say, crazy guy with an axe, don't come in just yelling your location,
I guess her primary concern is Danny at that point, though, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, I gotta go figure out where Danny is. And then I'm imagining, because it's like not super clear the timeline, very shortly after she's out of that room is the whole just ghost everywhere encounter that she like deals with.
Yeah.
So then her concern of Halloran is 0%. It's like, oh my God, there are just ghosts everywhere all of a sudden.
Well, I thought
Party, huh, bro? Or
she-
whatever that guy says.
And I get a little why she didn't, because he was still like right in that entryway, but
Yeah.
she should have stuck her head out the window as soon as he pulled up and been like, help.
Oh, yeah.
Just something like she wouldn't necessarily have even had to say he has an axe, be careful, he's around it, but like just to express that like there's danger
Yes,
present.
there's imminent. Don't just wander in and like trying to find us.
Yeah, like
Like,
we're not
defense.
already dead.
there's an
we're
active
actively
murder being commuted.
Halloran should have known something was. Well, he knew something was up because he.
Yeah, because
what-
the door's wide open.
He
and,
went
like,
through a lot of trouble to get here too.
Yeah, so,
he
the
knew
fact that
something
he's
was
just
wrong.
going in, hello?
Right,
You guys here?
All
like
I could
he
think
knows
the
what's
whole
happening.
time this is going on is like he doesn't shine that bright.
Well,
Oh.
important difference between the book and the movie. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, about the ending?
Well, Halloran, he doesn't die in the
He
book.
doesn't die, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he doesn't die in the book. Yeah.
no, he gets kind of fucked up.
Oh, yeah, and Wendy gets really fucked up too.
yeah.
Oh, does he actually get some hits in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
again,
it's
he's
really
he's using a blunt.
it's
object.
brutal, yeah, because it's a mallet. It's like a croquet mallet, basically. Like he's beating him with. It's not an axe.
Oh, geez.
So
Yeah,
yeah, he
so
breaks
fucked
Wendy's
up.
back and she's like trying to like crawl out.
Oh, she's like fully broken back.
Yeah,
Oh,
Uh-huh.
jeez.
yeah. It's messed up.
Fucked up.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucked up.
The obviously like most iconic scene from this whole movie is him like breaking down that door, and it's always the like here's Johnny thing. But I really, really like his 3 little pigs thing he does before swinging
Yeah.
the
It's
axe.
really good.
Not by the hair on your chin, chin. Yeah.
Fucking nut job.
Wicked bad. Like,
Just like, oh my God, if you're going to murder me, fine, but like, don't make it weird.
yeah.
This is
Don't-
worse
don't
than
be
the
doing
murdering.
bits. Then he opens and he goes, here's Johnny. It's like, you were just doing a 3 little pigs thing. Now you're doing a Johnny Carson thing. Like, at least be consistent, bro.
Up to that point, too, they're not super clear, but it's been like a day or 2 days since Danny has been gone at that point, too.
Oh, right, where it's presumably Tony. I
it's
love that
Tony.
she never explores it just a little bit. Like,
It is like
he's
her
gone.
least of her concerns
I think
right
at
now.
that
Yeah,
point,
no, I
she's just
know.
like,
okay,
all right, he's here. I have track of him at the moment.
Yeah, because at this point it's been Tony for like a day or 2 days too, until the red rum thing where she like very heavily, although she's pretty aware that her husband's locked in the pantry, so she's aware that her husband's about to try and murder her, but she is sleeping pretty heavily because her kid is like croaking on the side of her bed long enough to like go find a nice writing utensil and write it out, and she just sleeps through this whole thing.
I don't think she went to sleep. The lights were still on. She
Yeah.
was still in her bathrobe. I think she just like actually passed out from being awake, and that's why you know what I mean.
Oh,
Like she
yeah,
was.
yeah.
And
Just
plus,
like,
he's not too loud until right before he wakes
Right
her
to it,
up.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I
And she
personally would be-
fucking wakes up to him screaming red rum holding a big knife right
Yeah.
next to her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which what how do you guys react when that happens as parents?
Oh, when we wake up to our
That's
kid holding a big
normal.
knife.
Yeah.
It's pretty normal for us. When she was real little, she had gone outside and killed a squirrel with a knife and during the night and brought it into our room, like a cat would. And we people don't obviously you're not happy when your cat does it, but no one's super concerned. And it's the same thing with parenting.
Yeah, so she would have been what, a few months old at that point? Yeah. I mean, that's normal though.
It
She was
happens.
just curious.
She's a very
Yeah.
willful
She wanted to see
child.
what
She's
happened.
very willful.
If you don't mind me saying, a naughty child.
I do. I
She
I
needs to
mind
be
you saying that. It's not my
corrected.
child.
Yeah. Hey, whatever.
About Tony.
About Tony. So that's obviously an abuse defense mechanism, like that you can see in small children who like disassociate, right?
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay. That's pretty. We don't need to get too far into it because that's just right on the surface. I think that doesn't remark upon it, but that's obviously what's happening.
Oh, but anyway, so one of the things that I thought was really interesting is the way that they portrayed Tony in the movie, because I feel like it was
Yes.
it was really smart again, because that's not how it is in the book. It's like in the book, it's him like imagining that there's like a figure somewhere. Like it's coming to him in images. But I feel like that would be like corny to kind of show that, you know?
How do you conceptualize that in a movie?
Right. You would just see like flashes of like things.
Yeah.
Like it would just be too difficult. It wouldn't look good.
Him with like the extra voice and the fingers, like real good, especially
it
too
was such
because
a good choice.
it like right in the beginning of the movie, the first time he does it is in the bathroom. He like is talking to himself in the mirror with Tony, and they give you like basically all the information you need about The Shining right there, because Tony's telling him, he's like, "Do you think he's gonna get the job? He already did." And like you get like more than enough information right there. Like, oh, okay, cool. He can like see things, and like obviously Halloran goes into more detail with it, but that scene right there was like enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a ton of clever uses of shortcuts to get you
Yeah.
to the same place.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk. So big picture, this was adapted by first Stephen King, but contractually Kubrick got final say on it. He didn't like Stephen King's screenplay, so he wrote one of his own. He wrote it with a co-writer named Diane Johnson, who said of The Shining, the novel, among us, the novel's not part of great literature. It's scary, it's effective, and it works without further ado. But it is precisely interesting to see how a very bad book can also be very effective. It's
Whoa.
quite pretentious, but it's also true that one has less scruples when destroying it. One is aware that a great work of art is not being destroyed.
Wow.
Okay. So
Kubrick-
she just uses this to wipe her ass. Like that's
yes.
I feel personally attacked.
Kubrick actually liked the book and said it was one of the very few times that a work he was looking to adapt, he actually like read cover to cover and really enjoyed. But his co-writer felt
you should always.
You should read the whole thing if you're writing something about it.
no, he means
Not
like
if you-
something that like he felt like compelled
Oh, he
to like
enjoyed it. Oh, okay. I thought you
Yes.
meant he didn't read it.
something that he was actually like being hooked and like oh
Okay.
I got to keep reading kind of
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Yeah.
Like he read cover to cover like in one sitting. He means
Gotcha,
Yeah.
Or
gotcha.
whatever.
He reads the other works. He just was pulled into this one and
He was
excited
reading
about
as
it.
a reader rather
Yeah.
than
I
as
can't
like
believe
someone had to adapt
she
it.
didn't like it
Gotcha.
because like all the
No, it
critics,
sucked.
all the critics that thought the movie sucked were like, "This sucks. Read the book."
Yeah, so maybe that was her like
This
preemptively
sucks.
being
Watch the
like
movie.
yeah, right. So obviously, as we've been talking about and threading it throughout, King doesn't like this movie. He's kind of softened his stance over time, but still doesn't super like it. There's obviously tons of stuff written about this, tons of stuff that he's said about it. But one of the most concise things that I really like was just from a few years ago in 2013. A journalist, Laura Miller, wrote that the discrepancy between the two is not actually quite what King thinks, which is that the movie's downplaying the supernatural, and he, instead of like the sort of external forces making these people do things, it's just people who are just, doing things. She argued actually the opposite, and she said the decisions that the characters make, whether it's to confront a pack of vampires or break 10 years of sobriety, are what matters to Stephen King. But in Kubrick's The Shining, the characters are largely in the grip of forces beyond their control. It's a film in which domestic violence occurs. Well, King's novel is about domestic violence as a choice certain men make when they refuse to abandon a delusional, defensive entitlement. As King sees it, Kubrick treats his characters like insects because the director doesn't really consider them capable of shaping their own fates. Everything they do is subordinate to an overweening, irresistible force, which is Kubrick's highly developed aesthetic. They are its slaves. And then the line that I think probably stands out the most is, in King's The Shining, the monster's Jack. In Kubrick's, the monster is Kubrick.
Jesus Christ.
So.
You just
So,
gonna
yeah.
strip a man naked like that in front of everyone to see?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Wow.
King said that Kubrick's The Shining is a film by a man who thinks too much and feels too little. Other critics of King have said that he feels too much and thinks too little. So there's a lot of animosity, obviously, back and forth. But yeah, he likes what Flanagan did with Dr. Sleep, though. So King now isn't in a position where someone else has final say on how his adaptations are structured. So he was pitched by Mike Flanagan this version of Dr. Sleep where the Overlook still exists, and it's sort of like a melding of the two. And he first sort of was like rejecting it. But then I guess Flanagan like explained to him how it would work, and he ended up liking it. And he says that everything he ever disliked about the Kubrick version of The Shining is redeemed for me here, talking about the Dr. Sleep movie.
Okay.
Wow.
So there you go.
I could see,
About a lady with a big hat who tries to eat kids.
Okay.
I could see that because I think a
Well,
lot
their
of the
energy, sorry.
like the criticisms that even the article you were reading, I can see her point too, but it's very much how you interpret it, because
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like all of those elements are present anyway. It's just how much you
Yes.
feel they were.
I think this is just, and before this, he wasn't necessarily anywhere near as critical about adaptations of his work. But I think this one is just sort of, whether he sees that as like this is his most important work or his most personal, he obviously had something of a bigger stake in it, that for someone to come in and say, well, this is complete shit, we're just going to take the parts that work and ignore the other shit that doesn't.
Yeah, someone tore up what he did and made something new.
Well, but like
Right, yeah.
not just what he did when he actually got naked himself and was like, this is me at my worst. This is how horrible I am.
It's
and they were
true,
like,
but
actually, let's.
I feel like he does that in like all his books.
Oh,
though.
okay.
I mean,
But I still think you're right, though.
yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
To his credit, we do have the version that he would have preferred in the 1997 miniseries, Stephen King's The Shining, in which,
One's mine.
17 years after Kubrick's The Shining comes out, this movie comes out. Well, it's a miniseries. It's on TV. So obviously it's not directed by one of the most inventive image makers of all time. But I mean, it looks like dog shit. And it's not scary. So I don't know.
And I mean,
It's just
critics
fucking
couldn't have
goofy.
found it any worse.
Yeah.
I just can't get over the that people hated this movie.
Yeah, it comes out. It gets nominated for 0 Oscars, and it is instead nominated for 2 Razzies for Worst Actress, which is won by Shelley Duvall, and they also nominated Kubrick for Worst Director.
Wow.
I also
Holy
read
shit.
that
For
this movie came
maybe
out-
perhaps one of the most important movies to the visual language of film that we've covered on this. But, you know.
Yeah. I read that this movie was also released the same weekend as Empire Strikes Back.
Oh
Stuff.
Jesus!
Who made that decision? Like you must have known that Star Wars was coming out that weekend. Not just Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back is coming out.
Well,
that weekend.
was I think Empire was what defined them. I think that was their they weren't as popular after New Hope.
I don't know. I thought like
No,
A
no,
New
I
Hope
think,
did it, didn't
yeah,
it?
Yeah. I think A New Hope was
Empire,
one
like,
of those.
threw it over the top.
Yeah, I think New Hope was one of those things where people went in and it was like, oh my God, you have to see this because this has never happened before. And then everyone's like, what's coming next? So everybody went to go see Empire.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, Empire obviously is a huge cultural moment because of the I Am Your Father
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. But like, why would you gamble and be like, I'll release my movie that same weekend? It can't be that
I
bad.
mean, spoiler alert, but so yeah, there's some people thought that Nicholson was good and thought it looked nice, but thought it was ultimately pretty bad, and other people just thought it was all bad. Variety said, with everything to work with, Kubrick is teamed with Jumpy Jack Nicholson to destroy all that was so terrifying about Stephen King's bestseller. A common initial criticism was the slow pacing, highly atypical of horror films at the time.
Now, did any of these people come back like years later and be like, I am sorry?
Oh yeah, sure, for sure, absolutely. Siskel and Ebert both didn't like it, and Ebert was never one to shy away from changing his opinions on things. I don't actually have if he updated to change it in front of me, but that's a thing he did a lot, so I'm sure at least some of them did. Pauline Kael didn't like it either, but she doesn't like a lot of stuff. This is the only one of Kubrick's last 11 movies to receive no nominations at all from the Oscars, Golden Globes, or BAFTAs, and was his only film to be nominated for Razzies.
There's a real good quote from Silicon Valley, and it's being too soon is being the same thing as being wrong. And
Yeah.
you know, like in the tech world, like there's been plenty of tech that is invented 20 years ago and is not marketed right and just doesn't take off, and or
Zunes.
whatever. No, no, not Zunes, but like Zunes.
But good things.
Yeah.
Like good ideas.
things, good ideas.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
No, but that's totally
The Apple
accurate.
Newton.
Yeah, it's if you're too soon, you're still wrong. I mean, it's still great. It works out for the movie thing. Like we still get to watch it, but
Yes.
they didn't win the awards because they were too soon.
I think within it took a few years for, I think the reappraisal starts maybe by the late 80s. People are like, is this the best movie ever made instead of complete horseshit like we all said?
It's just like, it's weird to go that far.
Yeah.
Completely turn around.
I
Like
like to imagine
contemporary
they like
critics
just
are-
wake up one day and they're like, "Wait a second,
Yeah.
This is
Con-
genius.
That was the
Contemporary
best movie
critics
I
are
ever
talking
saw.
about it like it's like Cats 2019, you know, but
that's really funny."
anything else that we want to mention?
I think I covered all my points that I had for this movie.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll just give another plug for the book. It's just so good. If you have questions about the movie, just read the book.
Yeah, you can send us an email.
Did you say you said you liked the book's ending a lot better too, right?
I did. It was a lot more satisfying, but
Which is unusual because I feel like Stephen King's endings are usually bad.
yeah, the one time he got it right.
They changed it. The picture in the end confuses me still.
What's he's always been the caretaker.
He's
What do you
always
want?
been
He's always been the caretaker.
Yeah.
It just
Well, it's like Charles Grady was here a few years ago and he murdered all his kids, and he was the caretaker. But Delbert Grady, he's always been there. So maybe that's like John Torrance in the picture. There's all kinds of doubles, as we said before.
Yeah.
There's mirrors all the time, and doubling and doppelgangering, and
In the book, everything at the hotel basically happens at the same time. So like when he's like at the part in that ballroom, there's people there that are from like the 1920s. There's people there that are from the 1950s. Like everything in the hotel is happening like in sync, like all together.
Okay.
It's all times in one.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's what they're also trying to say in the movie. Like, I don't know. He's also there in 1921 because he's there now, and you know he's just always been there because everything at the Overlook is just one time. That's what they go for in the book, anyway.
Huh. I'm gonna have to read the book.
It's real good.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking about The Shining, guys.
Oh, anytime.
Anytime.
I've been Ben Holtz.
Always talk about The Shining.
Shine on.
That was Robbie, Ray, Greg, all them with talking words. If you want to follow us on Instagram, I highly suggest it. It's late to the movies, late number 2, the movies _podcast on Instagram. You can also email us your feedback or any questions you have. We'll answer your questions on the pod. If you send us enough of them, we'll do a mailbag episode, which means we won't have to watch a movie. Ha ha ha, jokes on you. And that's late to the movies @gmail.com.
Please email Ben, even if it's bad. Maybe that's better, honestly, because I will get a really good laugh out of it if someone emails him mean things.
There's also like a working contact form on the website, so you can go there too, and that also feeds into that email. So you know, good shining to you, and later.
There was Johnny.
Peace.
There goes Johnny.